All right, it is 7:01, and I will call this meeting to order. First order of business is the roll. Janet, if you please.
Councilmember Trupiano. Here. Councilmember Tillman. Here. Councilmember Cloven.
I'm here.
Vice Mayor Diaz.
Yes.
Mayor Juan.
I am here. Next is the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Okay, next is item 3, public comment on non-agenda items. I do have a few speaker cards for this item. If anyone would like to speak on anything that is not on the agenda, now is your time. Please feel free to fill out a speaker card and we could deliver it to our city clerk. First on the list is Rosie Straka.
That should have been a vocal minority delivered by Rosie Straka. In 2018, residents came to the City Council en masse expressing concerns and were told that their voices did not matter because they were a vocal minority. This became a rallying cry and was the basis for Jeff Juan's 2018 campaign run. Elect me and your voices would be heard. Let me repeat that last statement. Jeff Juan ran his campaign on the notion that he would listen to all residents and do the best thing for Clayton. All of you represent Clayton, represent the residents of Clayton, all of the residents of Clayton, not only the faction of the residents that agree with your political agenda. The residents of Clayton expect and deserve that all 5 of you come prepared to a city council meeting to hear public comment, to deliberate, seeking clarifications with staff, and then determine a path forward. Sadly, this is not what has been happening in 2023 under Mayor Juan's leadership. Initiatives have been forced on the agenda without sufficient vetting or prioritization, and serial meetings occurred outside of city council chambers to determine an outcome before ever setting foot in Hoyer Hall. You are doing a disservice to Clayton residents. Clayton residents have packed meeting halls with pleas for the council to do the right thing, though repeatedly their voices are ignored. We are the vocal minority established in 2023. You are the council choosing to follow a personal agenda in lockstep, setting aside the good of the community. You have a budget crisis and significant structural and compensation issues with the city staff. You have hired a competent city manager, yet you try to block him from doing his job to address these issues, as anyone watching the meetings can see. You had an incredibly talented city manager prior to Brett's arrival, but when she would surface these deficiencies, you would attack her on social media and in chambers. You have publicly acknowledged these structural issues, but once recognizing that doing the right thing for the city would be an unpopular topic around an election season, you chose to do the right thing for your political agendas. And therefore, here before us tonight, we will discuss a proposition to shift the burden to community nonprofits to make a few more dollars. No matter your decision tonight, if you receive any incremental revenue from fee increases, this will not address the systematic problems for which you are keenly aware but are choosing to turn a blind eye when sitting in public chambers. You are searching for quarters under couch cushions instead of doing the real work, which is to assess and address the deficits. The citizens of Clayton will suffer from your shell game, and for this, you should be ashamed. This is not what you promised during your campaigns. Stop hiding the truth from residents of Clayton. We are the vocal minority group established in 2023 and are here to hold you accountable to do the right thing for Clayton now and in next year's election. Thank you.
Next up is Larry McNeil. This is item number 3.
Sorry?
This is item number 3.
Item number 3.
You filled up.
Number 3, and number 2 to speak, or 3 to speak.
Okay, please go ahead.
What I want to go back to is a couple of...
Push the button.
Perfect. Can I... Okay, no feedback, right? So I want to address something that I heard a few weeks ago from you, Mr. Mayor, and it occurred during the conversations we were all having with Republic Services. And you made a comment And I can only assume that it must be official City of Clayton policy or point of view, whatever you want to call it. But you called our government in Sacramento a fascist government. I was very taken aback by that comment. I can't see how a duly elected government in Sacramento, or for that matter, is fascist. I just did a quick little search to what is a fascist government. Maybe we have our definitions wrong. Perhaps you could look up the definition yourself, but one is you have to have a dictator ruling. I don't think Gavin Newsom is a dictator. I think he was duly elected. And then two, people are not allowed to disagree with the government. Here we are, we're having a conversation. We are allowed to disagree on policies. So I don't see how that fits into playing that we have a fascist government. That to me was an insult to me, to many other people, and probably a lot of people in the state of California that you think, having said it as the mayor of Clayton, that is now official city policy, that the city of Clayton believes, that the Sacramento government is a fascist government. I do not believe that is the case. I think we all need to reflect upon that point of view, because I think that point of view is absolutely wrong. Thank you.
Next up is James Killern.
On here? Gotcha, thank you. Good day, council. I am requesting the city council immediately prioritize the development of a vegetation management plan to reduce fire risks in our community and also to address a significant safety issue on Keller Ridge Drive. As you likely know, the city of Clayton has been classified as high fire risk. In addition, residents are discovering their insurance is not being renewed. Farmers insurance has significantly increased rates for existing customers, and the inability of residents to transition to a new insurance company without using the expensive California FAIR plan, which is impacting some home sales. The council cannot influence insurance regulators, but they can instruct the city manager to immediately start the development of a comprehensive vegetation management plan. This vegetation plan could include educating our citizens to reduce home fire risk, city work to reduce vegetation in our hills and in our town, a warning system, a fire drill, and eliminating evacuation bottlenecks. With respect to Keller Ridge Drive, I asked the city to use ARPA funds to remove the triangular median planters in the safety lanes. Bikes and cars continue to hit these unsafe medians that are not properly maintained by the city. Furthermore, these medians reduce Keller Ridge Drive from 4 lanes to 2 lanes, creating a significant evacuation hazard during a fire. The city should also consider not allowing residents of these few homes to park on this block during high-risk fire. So one of the reasons I talk about Keller Ridge is I've spoke to 3 of the council members here about these medians on Keller Ridge Drive because I was a first responder to an accident a year ago. I saw it all in front of my eyes as I was coming down Keller Ridge. Electric bike was coming up, weaving in and out recklessly through traffic, and he did not see the median. There was no marking on it, there was no plants in it, and he hit it probably between 25 and 30 miles per hour. He went, if you ever seen an Evel Knievel where he jumps over the things and then he tumbles, well, that's what happened there, is he went 20 feet in the air, feet straight up, head down, hit his head, and then subsequently rolled more feet. And so again, it was about 20 feet. That's how bad the incident was. The only thing that saved his life is he had a safety helmet on. He was out cold for about probably 15 minutes until the ambulance arrived. So again, when I was walking for a campaign, on one court alone, 5 of the residents of 8 homes had hit it with either a fire or with their bicycles. So again, it's something that needs to be finally addressed by a city. Please remove them. Thanks a lot. Bye.
Thank you. Janet, do we have any hands raised online?
Mayor Juan, I do not have any hands raised on this item.
Okay, then I will, okay.
Good evening, City Council, City of Clayton. Apologize for the short notice. I was asked to speak by Lieutenant Colonel Michael Hudson tonight. I recognize a couple of other veterans here. He is going to do something this weekend, very short notice, to honor Lieutenant Novakovich, the namesake for the VFW. It's the Lieutenant Colonel's 30th anniversary when he became a Marine, and he wants to honor Lieutenant Novakovich by starting in the Lieutenant Novakovich's neighborhood of Mitchell Canyon. He's going to hike up the mountain to the top. He's got the ID tag for the lieutenant. Take a picture of it. If there's anyone else who knows him, I know that he's invited Pete Lawrence. And again, it's last minute. I talked to him this morning. We'll try and get word out on social media. Maybe Clay Court picks it up. But he asked me to get the word out, and as a good Marine, I'm following orders.
Thank you. Okay, I will close public comment and move on to the consent calendar. Is there anything that anyone would like to pull from consent? Seeing,
I do have a question on one item, and that is, hang on one second, I have it in my notes. The Richard Sanders contract, the Inuit.
it's item 4C.
Correct, 4C. I'm sorry, my laptop went off for a second there.
Would you like to pull that one for discussion?
Yes, please.
Okay, thank you. Any other items? Okay, then feel free, go ahead.
City Manager Brett, can you tell us a little bit more about this agreement? I read through some of the notes. Just give us some of the specifics of what Mr. Sanders will be doing for us. It sounds like it's to kind of catch up on past financial, well, you explain it a little bit better to us. It's $5,600 a month and potentially through next June, which could be $56,000. So if you'll just explain what he'll be doing for us, that would be great.
Yeah, we have a variety of things that we need to do related to year-end close, related to just catching up on some financial work. As you know, we talk about the transition. I talk about it all the time, and the gaps that happen when that occurs. And so now that Property is here as a finance director, we've used this gentleman before to kind of help us get caught up, and more, I think, importantly, close the books and go through the audit with us to be another set of hands. Typically, we would just hire this person as an extra help employee, but CalPERS, because he's a retired annuitant and been in the system, we have to bring those specifically to the council to get approved and then send them off to CalPERS under their rules. So that's the summary version of what this gentleman will be doing for the city. I believe it's $70 an hour, and so he'll just be used as an as-needed basis to do this work moving forward.
Okay, thank you very much. And so he would start in August this month and potentially, if we need him, through next June.
Yeah, I mean, the date was put out to be safe in case anything else came up, probably more intensely in the next 3 months, we'll say. And then, if projects come up more specifically as we're doing some of this other additional kind of transition and foundational work related to business licenses and a few other things, those set of hands might be helpful. But it's really to focus on the next 3 months to close the fiscal year 22-23 books.
Great. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Do you want to reduce the time window then and then come back if it's needed at a later time? I'm asking what your preference is.
Well, what is your recommendation? If he's been here before, and that probably preceded me,
I would say the
10
flexibility
months of work?
helps staff to not be able to come back to do items again. We're very mindful of the fiscal, needs that we have, and so we will evaluate that along the way relative to the ability to use him. But coming back, I don't know. I don't see the value. I think it's better to leave the flexibility in my hands to use as needed.
I'm okay with that.
Okay. Any other comment on consent? I'd open up this item for public comment. If anyone has any public comment on consent, now is the time. Seeing none,
Mayor Wan, I do not have any hands raised on this item.
Okay, then we will close public comment.
I move approval.
I'll
Move
second it.
Approve, second. Janet, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Trupiano?
Yes.
Councilmember Tillman?
Aye.
Councilmember Cloven?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Diaz?
Yes.
And Mayor Wan.
Aye. Okay, and with that, we move on to item 5. This is a presentation by the Contra Costa Mosquito and Vector Control District. Ms. Woods, I believe you have a presentation for us. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much for inviting me here tonight. I appreciate that. All right. So my name is Nola Woods. I am the Public Affairs Director for the Contra Costa Mosquito and Vector Control District. And again, thank you so much for inviting me here tonight to speak to you tonight. Next slide. So the district's mission statement is the Contra Costa Mosquito and Vector Control District is a public health agency dedicated to protecting the community from mosquitoes and other vectors of disease. And in 1926, the citizens of Contra Costa County actually voted to create the Contra Costa Mosquito Abatement District as an independent special district, an independent public health agency. As a special district, we are not part of Contra Costa County. And in 1927, we opened our doors. Next slide. In 1993, Contra Costa County actually transferred its rat and mouse and rabies risk reduction programs to the district, and that is when our name changed to the Contra Costa Mosquito and Vector Control District, and it has been that way ever since. And we have a number of district services to reduce the risk of mosquitoes, rats and mice, skunks, ticks, ground nesting or underground yellow jackets specifically, and we provide inspection and education for honeybees. And we are funded by property taxes here in Contra Costa County, as well as some community also have a benefit assessment. So when we provide any residential services to the people of Contra Costa County, there is no additional charge. Our Board of Trustees is 22 members. We represent each of the 19 cities in Contra Costa County, and then there are 3 trustees who represent the county at large. And currently, we actually have vacancies in 3 cities, including Clayton. So we would really hope that maybe this will spur some interest in becoming a trustee so that Clayton does once again have representation on our Board of Trustees. Your previous trustee actually served as president of our Board of Trustees twice. So we know we've had very good representation from the city of Clayton before, and we look forward to having a trustee again. So when it comes to the Board of Trustees, the job of a trustee is to represent the best interests of your community, to ensure the delivery of essential local services and infrastructure, and faithfully serve the public good while upholding the law. And just to give you an update on the latest issues here in Clayton pertaining to the Contra Costa Mosquito and Vector Control District, and I have a couple of updated numbers from the screen that you're looking at there. We've had so far this year, in 2023, we've had 9 requests for mosquito service. We've had 16 requests for mosquito fish service, 8 requests for neglected swimming pool service, 5 requests for rat and mouse service, 1 for skunk. We haven't had anyone from Clayton bring in any biting or stinging pests for tick ID so far this year. We've had 1 request for our bee education service, and we are in the middle of a very busy ground nesting yellow jacket season. So the city of Clayton has now had 6 requests for ground nesting yellow jacket service. In addition to the residential services that we provide, district employees also inspect and treat other public areas like public waterways, pastures, parks, and other agricultural areas where mosquitoes and other vectors of disease or harm can cause issues for the neighboring residents. Now, it is West Nile virus season. It's mosquito season, and it's been quite warm, and so we have seen West Nile virus in Contra Costa County. I do have some updated numbers on this for you as well. So far, we have had 5 groups of mosquitoes test positive for West Nile virus. Those mosquitoes were collected from Discovery Bay, Brentwood, Pittsburgh, and Oakley. We have also had 5 dead birds test positive for West Nile virus so far this year. Those birds were collected from Brentwood, Oakley, Martinez, San Ramon, and Concord. And so our entomologist tells us that while we are seeing a lot of the mosquito activity in East County, the number of dead birds that are testing positive for West Nile virus are really from many areas of the county. So it's a good reminder to really take precautions to make sure you reduce the risk of West Nile virus, including dumping and scrubbing any containers that hold any amount of water, because even the bottle cap on the top of a water bottle can hold enough water to produce mosquitoes. You want to be sure to wear insect repellent if you're going to be out in the evening, like this evening, and request mosquito service if you find mosquito issues on your property. A quick update on the non-native invasive mosquitoes that we found in Martinez. Exactly 1 year ago, we have obviously great concern about these mosquitoes because they can transmit the virus that can cause Zika, dengue fever. They are called the yellow fever mosquito is their common name. They lay individual sticky eggs on the inside of the containers where the water is. And so that's why our messaging has been updated to dump and scrub, because simply dumping out standing water doesn't remove those eggs. You have to scrub them off. And so we're telling folks to do that, and of course report any day-biting mosquitoes, because that can be a sign of these particular mosquitoes. So thank you very much for inviting me again. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Go ahead.
Thank you for your presentation. I do have a couple of questions for you. The first one was, you mentioned mosquito services happened here in town and across the area. What warrants one calling for mosquito service besides trying to handle it yourself?
So if you find that you are being bitten by mosquitoes in your front yard or your backyard, okay, or sometimes if the screens aren't fitting, are not fitting well, or the front door gets left over, a sliding door gets left over, often you can have them in your house. If you're finding that you're having mosquitoes issues on your property, then you can call us or go on our website, contracostamosquito.com, and request mosquito service.
Okay. Does it need to be a certain number of them?
No. If you're finding that you're being bitten by mosquitoes on your property, that's enough. And then folks can actually, they can also report mosquitoes in public areas. Okay. If they go to a park or another public area and they're finding that they're being bitten by mosquitoes while they're out walking the dog or whatnot, they can also report that they were experiencing mosquitoes at that particular location.
Okay, great. That's very helpful information. And then I know that you gave us some updated numbers. What was the range from the change? Were these June month-end numbers to today, or what's the range?
Sure. So I had provided this presentation, I believe, on August 8th or 9th. Oh. And so I checked the numbers again this morning, preparing for today's presentation, and I noticed that there were a few numbers that went up. And because for specifically the West Nile numbers, we've gone from 2 and 2 to 5 and 5 mosquito samples and 5 dead birds. It's because we are in West Nile season, which happens when the overnight temperature is about 54 degrees solid 24 hours a day, and we know that we've been dramatically exceeding that lately, and so that allows the virus to replicate more efficiently. So that's when we see West Nile virus, particularly in the summertime.
Got it. Nope, that's very helpful and scary at the same time. And then my last question is, in regards to the vacancy that we have, I know that, was her name Peggy?
Yes.
She had to resign last summer. I think it was August 15th.
Because she moved out of Clayton.
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
And I know that others in town can apply for that. you want to give a little bit more info, folks who are listening, on how they can do that?
Sure. So anyone who's interested in becoming the trustee on behalf of Clayton would actually, I believe, would contact the city clerk and file the paperwork there, and then it is up to you as the city council to appoint a resident to our board of trustees.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
I just have two quick questions. Thank you so much, Nola. So can you tell us a little bit more about what the responsibilities are of the trustee, how many meetings there are, and what they would actually be doing?
Sure. So our trustees, now that we are post-pandemic, we are back to in-person meetings, and our trustees meet every other month, beginning in January.
And their role is, what is their role and responsibility as a trustee?
So they have an oversight role. Of course, they are have a supervisory role for our general manager.
Okay.
And then they will look into other issues that impact the district, and they can provide their insight. They help to approve, like our budget, obviously. So they do work on behalf representing the district in their own communities, as well as work on behalf of the district as well in the oversight job.
Okay. And just a follow-up question to Councilmember Tillman. So when the mosquito service, you provide the service, is that spraying? Like, what is that service to eradicate?
So on the residential service is coming out to the property. If someone, I'm going to make up an address now, it's my standby, 123 Main Street, the resident there contacts the district, requests mosquito service. Our state certified inspector or technician will come out, do a property inspection, determine if there is any mosquito issue there, look for areas like, for example, under a potted plant. Oftentimes there's a plate that can hold standing water as the water comes down through the plant. We will check those areas, any kind of standing water, if we see buckets, or if there's a water feature on the property. We'll make sure that we communicate with the resident about what we're seeing, what needs to happen. We'll help them dump out, water and leave it for them to be able to scrub. And if there is a water feature like a decorative pond or perhaps a swimming pool that's no longer used, or in some larger properties, maybe they have horse troughs. If we're seeing that there is a mosquito issue there in the water feature, we can place mosquito-eating fish in that water feature, and they will eat the young mosquitoes as they're developing in the water.
Great. Thank you so much.
Sure.
Interesting.
Thank you. That's very helpful, and I do hope that we spur some interest. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Next is item 6, reports from our city manager.
Thanks, Mayor. Yeah, I just have one report. The California Energy Commission, as your council knows, approved the city's 1% loan related to our large project we're going to be working with Climate Tech on, and this is really great news for the city and the community. This was really the biggest hurdle we needed to jump over to be able to begin this project. We will now be kicking off with some preliminary work with Climate Tech in September. And good news is this will add charging stations to the library, improve HVAC and a variety of facilities, solar, water metering and use. And so it's a good project as it relates to kind of energy efficiency for the city, which is wonderful. And I applaud your council collectively in moving this forward. But it also will help us reduce costs in some areas, specifically around water use mostly, and that's exciting as well. And so much more to come. It's anywhere between 12 to 18-month process from start to end of construction. We'll be providing council updates along the way, but wanted to, we put that on Facebook, but we also wanted to get that out today for the public to hear that it's a very big hurdle, and very excited about starting this project.
Excellent, thank you. I do believe it's one of the larger infrastructure projects we've done in the city since Oakhurst was constructed, so it's very exciting. Next up is item 7, action items. This is quarterly financial report on the city's investment portfolio. I believe our finance director is going to kick us off.
Good evening, Mayor Juan and council member. In front of you today is the investment report for the quarter ending June 30th, 2023. City continues to improve its net interest position on its total investment. The total interest for fiscal year 22-23 was about $238,000. The total interest revenue for the second quarter of 2023 for UBS, LAIF, and CAMP is $71,000, $8,000, and $19,000 respectively. At this time, we're receiving about 5% from CAMP, PFM CAMP, which is liquidity pool similar to the LAIF, which we do have investments. But CAMP has better short-term return. LAIF apportionment rate is around 3%, and the city's total liquid portfolio in money market is about 12.12%. As the investment mature, we're moving it to a higher yield investments. And recently, we have invested 2 new CDs that's not in the report to yield 5.45 and 5.25% over a 2-year and a 3-year term. And as outlined by our UBS rep, he did provide some suggestions that staff does not believe in selling lower yielding investments for higher yielding investments because the losses have been high to break even the profit from this balancing. But we did request this morning after our conversation to give us the analysis so we can talk about it again. Interest rate continues to remain from about 5 to 5.50%. So, that is our main focus, to let the old investment as of now to mature and then reinvest in higher yields. We do have to remember that, interest rate has been high and, this is not a structural revenue change. It's more, it could revert back to normal rates, which is typically between 2 to 3%, matching the Federal Reserve inflation. We do have James Dill, our UBS financial advisor today here. So let me have him talk about our total investment portfolio.
And while we get James on the Zoom, I think to add, it's important to note that we've had a lot of vacancies in my role and Property's role for a while, and now that Property and I are together, we will continue to evaluate kind of the cash flow needs of the city, ensuring that we have enough cash to maintain operations and payments while moving the unneeded cash for that purpose to, at a minimum, our liquidity pools, which will focus mostly on CAMP moving forward right now with their higher yield. But it will take a little bit of time for us to understand the cash flow, to be comfortable, to be able to move things as far as the investment portfolio goes to a longer duration to lock in that yield. Moving into our CAMP and LAIF cash pools is a rather simple move because we have access to those pretty immediate within 24 hours. But looking out to whether it's treasuries or additional CDs moving forward with some level of lock-in duration, whether it's 2 or 3 years, we want to understand the cash flow a little bit more before we go down that. So in future reports, I think you'll see CAMP probably with a much higher balance at these rates and less focus on investments in treasury and CDs in the short run. But as we get cash flow awareness, we'll be able to lock in those rates as appropriate moving forward. And James, if you're up now, are you there?
Hey, good evening, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes, please go ahead.
Great. My name's James Dill. I'm a financial advisor here at UBS. We've helped you guys with the investment portfolio for a number of years. Like it's been kind of pointed out already, the UBS portfolio has predominantly been treated as a kind of medium to longer term investment portfolio for the city. Camp and Leaf are treated as kind of the more liquidity, shorter-term investments. The city's pretty much maintained a investment strategy. We pretty much buy and hold in a laddering strategy where we have a maximum maturity of about 5 years. That'd be the longest investment that the city would purchase. And the goal is to have investments maturing on a regular basis. So every month, every 2 months, there's investments that are maturing. Those investments are able to be reinvested into current interest rate investments. And then it has also been kind of already pointed out, currently interest rates are much higher than we've seen in a number of years. Highest interest rates we've seen in almost 15 years. So many of the investments that are maturing today in the city's investment portfolio, currently at UBS, the investment portfolio is about a little bit more than $11 million. So as investments are maturing, we're able to reinvest into much higher rates. So we have interest rates that are maturing at 1%, 2%, 3% rates that were purchased in prior years. And we've been able to reinvest those funds into 5% plus interest rates. So as I'm sure many folks are aware, we're in a much higher interest rate environment, and this has created a good opportunity for the potential of locking in higher interest rates than we've had in the past. So like I said, in the past, the city has maintained a portfolio that's predominantly buy and hold, which would mean they buy investment, the city buys an investment, high quality insured CDs, guaranteed U.S. treasuries, government agencies, and holds them until they mature. So that way you purchase a value of the investment, you get a certain interest rate, and then you're guaranteed to get back the amount that you purchased as the investment on maturity. So this way, the city is not taking risk. The city is focusing on quality, focusing on preservation of capital, but also diversifying the interest rate risk over a few years. So you're able to capture a variety of rates over a number of years, opposed to what would be kind of money market rates, would be overnight money, which could change on a daily basis. If anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to answer anything you might have.
Thank you. Questions from council? I do want to thank you for joining us this evening. I know that you are on the East Coast, and so this is somewhat later for you, so I appreciate you taking the time to do that. We did have an extensive Budget and Audit Committee meeting yesterday where we went through some of the detail. I would appreciate, I think, as we move forward, to stay in contact so that we can be apprised of how things are going with our portfolio. And I know that you've done that in the past, and I look forward to it again. So that's not really a question, but I did want to thank you for joining us this evening.
Thanks. Happy to be here. And like you said, we're happy to kind of be a part of anything you guys might need moving forward.
Okay. So I will open this for public comment. Mr. Dill, you are welcome to exit if you'd like, or you're welcome to also stay and participate. But for now, I will open this up for public comment. If anyone has any comment on this item, now is the time. This is item 7A. Seeing none.
Mayor Juan, I do not have any hands raised on this item.
Okay, then I will close public comment. And I don't think there's an action on this one, although it is listed in action items. Are we accepting the report?
Yeah, I think because we needed to have it kind of talked about, instead of pulling it from consent, we put it on action. So I think if you want to just someone to make a motion to receive it, I think that's probably sufficient if we move forward.
Sure.
Motion in a second.
Yeah, it doesn't list that in the staff report, but that's fine. Would anyone like to make a motion to accept the report? And I think that's it.
Yeah, or if your council's fine, I'm good with a nod and I'm good. And yeah, we're fine. we're okay.
I think we're okay.
Okay,
good.
perfect. That works
Thank
for
you.
me. The least amount of Janet's minutes, the better.
All right, excellent. Next is item, well, we did it out of order. So we are moving public hearings, which is normally item 8. We will move that ahead. So we have 2 item 7s, but that's okay. So this is item 8A, public hearing on the FY24 master fee schedule for certain user benefit regulatory and rental city services and activities. I believe our finance consultant is kicking us off.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor Wan and members of the council. Nitish Sharma presenting you the item on the updated master fee schedule. This item has been in front of council for very extensive discussion. On June 26th, council took action at that meeting, provided staff direction with a motion to adjust the fee schedules for the special event fees for Clayton-based nonprofit and non-Clayton-based nonprofit. This report today adheres to council's direction, and I'd like the council to conduct a public hearing and consider adopting a resolution amending the book of fees for various regulatory activities, products, and services. I'm happy to answer any questions as you may have, and or any questions that may come up or any comments. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to do things a little differently since we have had extensive Q&A sessions multiple times. So I think and I know that there's a lot of people here, so I would move straight to public comment, and then we can do discussion later. There's a number of speaker cards already, and if you would like to make a comment on this item, feel free to fill out a speaker card and deliver it to our city clerk. So first, Mr. Wolf.
Mayor Wan, I just wanted to clarify, did you open the public hearing?
I think I did, but I will
Thank
open the
you.
public hearing.
Thank you. You
Okay.
probably did, and I didn't hear it, so I apologize.
Should I sit down and come back up? Or?
I think you're okay. We're good? All right.
Okay, well, good evening, council and city manager and staff. I'm C.W. Wolf, president of the CBCA. And for the record, the CBCA is a nonprofit 501c3 organization and has been benefiting the Clayton community since 1984, donating $175,000 back to the Clayton community this year alone. Recently, our organization has been featured in publications and postings as are somehow shortchanging the city, and that the city's objectives and the CBCA's were not aligned, when having a 15-year agreement in place between us clearly showed that we did have an alliance and it was intact. Walking hand in hand with the city, the CBCA paid every bill and has answered every call for financial help from the city, including city beautification projects such as building Daffodil Hill and the Grove Gazebo, and the annual holiday decorations and tree lighting ceremony, which is a CBCA donation to the city and our citizens. Also repairs to City Hall and Clayton police cars and to this very building, along with our continued sponsorships of the concerts in the Grove and the city's 4th of July parade. And even during the pandemic years, without our CBCA festivals, the CBCA continued to support the various organizations and charities and even financially helped our struggling city businesses long before any federal ARPA funding was available. This is something the CBCA should be celebrated for. We've always been aligned with the city until being maligned by the unceremonious cancellation of our long-standing agreement. Even now, we hold out hope that the city will take a step back from adding unnecessary, arbitrary, unreasonable, punitive, and potentially challengeable fees that are focused solely on the only organization in town that will pay the top-tiered fees, the CBCA. These fees are in no way cost recovery, which the CBCA is happy to cover, nor are they taxpayer subsidized. Our neighboring cities will not charge such fees, so make no mistake that the CBCA will do what it needs to do to continue our fundraising efforts, and no matter how or where we hold our events, the funds will always be returned to the Clayton community. We will not see our funding of our scholarships, local school programs, Blue Star Moms, Christmas for Everyone, Adopt a Family, the Clayton Theater Company, and others be reduced simply to pay arbitrary event fees. The CBCA will continue to work in good faith with the city toward a solution that strengthens our unique alliance and continues our mission of benefiting the Clayton community just as we have done for nearly 40 years. And we look forward to our continued conversations. Thank you.
Next up is Ed Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ed Miller, 598 Mount Dell Drive. Just a few quick points about transparency and honesty with regards to the master fee schedule and how it was represented to the community. First off, you spent $35,000 on a consultant whose report says that with these fee increases, annual revenue will increase by $36,000. So we spent $35,000 to make $36,000, and I'm guessing this review will happen again in 1 to 2 years. I guess I just find it ironic, given how much noise some of you made about the use of consultants by other council members to study the parcel tax feasibility. And those council members only had $129,000 of deficit spending, but we're already in the hole over $400,000 this year. Everyone in Clayton needs to understand that as a practical matter, when this is approved, all city fees in Clayton just went up about 50%. And I'm talking about things that will affect people day to day. Want to do a birthday party or a Little League party at Clayton Community Park? The minimum 4-hour block used to cost between $88 and $376. Now it will go up to $134 to $569. Building permits, Hoyer, and Endeavor Hall rentals, it's all going to cost quite a bit more. Certain council members have misrepresented the $10,000 special event fee for our street festivals as necessary for cost recovery, but I attended the last Budget and Audit Committee meeting about the master fee schedule back in June, and the mayor and consultant both agreed in that meeting that all of the city's costs are fully recovered without this fee. Every penny. Recently, the mayor even floated an alternate proposal in lieu of the event fee, which he referred to as a revenue sharing agreement. Well, I can think of another government word for revenue sharing: tax. And taxes have to be voted on per Prop 26. Lastly, the special event fee was represented as something that a lot of other cities do, and Walnut Creek was pointed out as an example for the fee structure to rent out all of Heather Farm Park. That didn't seem like a very apples-to-apples comparison, so I called the special events directors of both Walnut Creek and Concord to ask how they charge for street festivals. Both said that they only charge for cost recovery of staff time. Walnut Creek didn't even charge anything until a budget crunch about 20 years ago, and their city council at that time voted to grandfather in 10 legacy events at zero cost, rather than possibly lose those events. As the Concord program manager explained, we believe the community and economic impact of special events is greater than the revenue they bring in. I pray we have local leaders with similar vision for our community, and I thank you for your time.
Next up is Ed Hartley.
It's on? Yes. Oh, good. Ed Hartley, 972 Kenston Drive. In looking at the staff analysis in the packet regarding the regarding the fees that are being voted on tonight, there's reference to Prop 26, and that fees cannot exceed the cost of providing services, and that individual customers paying for these fees cannot be charged for more than the services they receive. And in context with the moving target of what these special event fees are, first it was cost recovery, and now it's turned to pure profit under the guise of win-win. I can't imagine that any serious analysis of this at the city level has not been accompanied by an opinion from the city attorney whether these fees, which are not tied to facilities in the proposed fee structure, they're outside of facilities, how these are legal under Prop 26 or any other state law or regulation. And I have not heard that there is a city attorney opinion on this, but I can't believe that there isn't one. And so what I would like to ask tonight is that whatever opinion the city attorney has given to this council be released to the public. And do not hide behind the attorney-client privilege. This is a very important topic for the community, and I think we should all know what the legal analysis is for these proposed fees. Finally, in looking at the fees, and Ed Miller illustrated a couple of them, some of the fees that are targeted to the families in this community, the increases are breathtaking and will be clearly cost prohibitive for somebody to go have a birthday party for their 8-year-old and invite their friends and use a few tables at the community park or the Grove Park. And so I think it's one thing to be able to get away, okay, with certain fees. You can have the mathematical logic of fees and multipliers and what have you and come up with a number. And if the only concern is trying to show cost recovery, okay, fine, you've done that. But I think there needs to be some consideration of the wisdom of doing many of these fees. Is it right for the community? What is the impact? You may raise plenty of fees for the community park, but if nobody will rent them anymore, it's a waste of time. And so I would hope that there is some discussion tonight about the wisdom of some of this, and that if it can't be decided tonight, that there be some due consideration for that. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Keith Hayden.
Mayor, Keith Hayden, 1542 O'Hara, and Council. I'm also addressing these special use fees that are being proposed tonight. I'm here to comment on that, and because we are questioning the structure and the justification for these new fees and don't see that properly identified and justified in the staff report or the analysis that's been provided orally at previous meetings. Regarding the new fees that were proposed, the staff analysis refers to the passage of Proposition 26, which prohibits cities from charging fees that exceed the cost of providing those services, and also prohibits customers from paying new fees for services they do not receive. The staff analysis for this agenda item estimated that the adoption of the proposed fees would generate an additional $36,000 for the city's general fund. What is this estimate based on? How much of that is just updating fees based on inflation since the last revision, or due to brand new fees that haven't been proposed before or implemented that way? And if these are new fees, what are specifically those fees, and what justifies the new fees and the structure that they're using? If there's a portion of the fee that reflects the actual cost of providing that service, what is that portion? And is there an additional portion based on additional items, such as the number of participants at special events? And if that's the case, how does the number of participants even impact the cost of the services being provided and the resulting fees to be charged? Regarding the questions the council had about the city waiving fees in the past for community events, I again suggest that you do some research and try to determine the rationale that was used by that city council to justify their decision. There must have been an overriding community interest or a cost savings to the city. I ask you to look into that because I believe that the city council typically makes decisions based on the overall best benefit to Clayton. And that's what we continue to ask you in this particular instance as well. The staff analysis also refers to an attempt to ensure that the proposed fees are reasonable and based on similar municipalities. As you've heard, no similar event is charged the way we are being proposed to be charged in Clayton. We're the only large events that are held on city streets, and so we have to take that this is a particular fee being imposed on CBCA, and you've heard the negative benefits that would result. But beyond that, no other community charges nonprofits similar fees for events that do not use city facilities. So we continue to struggle finding the justification that's used when we're told, even by the staff, that the current costs are being covered with the fee structure that's in place now. And we have no objection to that. We think that's legitimate, and we certainly support cost recovery for the city's services. So we again question the council's focus on cost recovery when they go beyond that with services above that.
Thank you. Your time has been exceeded. but
So I
thank
ask you to review this once again and pass what you can tonight on inflation-based services and fees, but to do more research on the other ones that are based on fees that you can't really justify at this time. Thank you.
It's my guess that you probably have more speaker cards.
Yes, Mayor Wan, I received some speaker cards. So AJ, if you can please make your way to the microphone.
Janet, I was asked to give this. All right, let's get the eyes on. Here we go. My name is AJ Chipero. I'm a 13-year Clayton resident. I served on the Trails and Landscaping Committee for 6 years, followed by 4 years on the Planning Commission. I'm also a former CBCA board member, but now I am speaking as a concerned citizen that the 5 of you were elected to represent. Tonight you have a choice: to vote for continued community investments or to vote for Jeff Wan's unnecessary special event tax. What are community investments? Nonprofits like the CBCA invest profits from their events back into the community in the forms of scholarships, Chromebooks for classrooms, gear for high school sports teams, grad night contributions, holiday decorations for downtown, stickers for the Clayton Police to hand out to the kids, a sound system for the Clayton Theater Group, support groups that provide food and recovery services, improvements to the Clayton Museum, our downtown bocce courts, city beautification like Daffodil Hill that the CBCA covered 50% of the costs, city landmarks like the iconic gazebo in the Grove that was a gift to the city by the CBCA. Whereas money collected from Jeff Wan's unnecessary special events tax will barely make a dent in the city's projected deficit and will never go towards the community investments I just cited. This is Jeff Wan's way of merely creating an illusion that he is helping the city when in reality, he's just kicking the can down the road for another council or mayor to deal with. As I stated the last time I spoke before this council, should the CBCA and other groups pay their fair share to cover all costs? Absolutely. But Jeff Wan's unnecessary special event tax is double dipping and asking for upwards of an additional $10,000 a day on top of actual costs to the city for events over 5,000 people. Do the math. The combined amount the city would collect from the CBCA Art and Wine and Oktoberfest would be the equivalent of $7 per household in taxes. That's 4 days, that's $7,000 a day. It equals $28,000, and you divide that by the 3,986 households in Clayton. As a tax-paying resident of the city, I'd rather pay an extra $7 in taxes each year in lieu of Jeff Wan's unnecessary special event tax if it means helping several students go to college or providing a classroom with Chromebooks or any other list of the community investments. When it is time for you to make your vote, ask yourself this: is this money better used to continue to invest back into our community, or Jeff Wan's unnecessary special event tax that will only scratch the city budget? That choice is an easy one to make. I hope that each one of you will step aside from your handlers and make your own informed decision that will enhance our community. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Pat. Our next speaker is Pat.
Well, it's Pat Middendorf. You probably can't read my handwriting, right? Anyways, okay. Anyways, I live up at 185 Brandywine Place, and I got here tonight, and I got to admit, I walked in the room and I just felt creepy, because the last time I've been here was the March meeting. And you remember the March meeting. Everybody remembers the March meeting. The room was packed with people. People were crying in that meeting. People were begging you to listen to them, and you didn't do it. You did not listen to them. You voted that night, you put it on the agenda a few days ahead of time, and voted to terminate the CBCA agreement that had been in place for decades. And we begged you, we said, you don't have any data. You don't have any reason. You did not talk to the CBCA. Why are you doing this? And you did not listen. Nobody listened, blind ears. And I'm telling you, people were crying leaving that meeting, probably me too. I also spoke tonight because at that meeting, as the first vice president of CBCA, I filed paperwork to use the different meeting rooms. And I filed paperwork to use the Endeavor Hall for the barbecue meeting. We have a judges class that we have to have. Last year, we paid $400 for that barbecue meeting. This year, we were given a bill for $2,000. Now, I reported that, and nobody listened to me again. And I said, the barbecue festival is in danger. If we go from $4,000 to $20,000, which is what we did with Endeavor Hall, we can't do it. Nobody listened. As it turned out, it didn't change. We ended up with having to pay the same fee, but it was too late. We had already canceled the meeting, so we lost out on the judging class. We lost out on money. We lost out on judges. And not one person, not one from the city or from the city council came back to me and said, Pat, don't worry about it. The barbecue's not going to have to pay this year. It won't go up till the year after. I'm on the barbecue committee. We're so stressed out, we don't know what to do. So what do? We do what the right thing was. We had to not hold the barbecue this year. But that was awful, because now you don't have any money coming back to the community from that barbecue festival. But not only that is, Mr. Mayor Juan, you said in the newspaper, all over social media, that it was our fault that we didn't hold the barbecue meeting, that those fees weren't, you never told us those fees were going to go up. Even your city manager said we made a mistake. We did tell them that. You didn't correct your mistake. Instead, you let your lie stay all over social media that the barbecue was our fault, that it was canceled. It was your fault, and it was your fault, and it was your fault. And you need to know that, and you need to own up to it. And if this is what's going to happen with this fee schedule, you need to own up to that too, because the money that goes into this community is being lost by you, not by us.
Our next speaker is Dalen. If you can please approach the podium.
Dear City Council members, hello, my name is Dalen Chipero. I'm a Clayton resident as well as a 7th grade student at Diablo View Middle School. As a leadership student, I would like to talk about some of the ways my fellow students and I have benefited from the donations the CBCA has made to my schools over the years. When I was at Mount Diablo Elementary School, the CBCA made a substantial donation towards redoing the playfield that helped provide a safe area for students to play on. Both my 4th and 5th grade classrooms received a cart of Chromebooks that were donated to the school by the CBCA. The CBCA also made donations to my elementary school's garden club. In addition to being involved in leadership at Diablo View Middle School, I'm also taking part in a newly formed drama club. Both my leadership class and the drama club will ask the CBCA for donations this year to help with leadership activities and putting money towards putting on a production for the drama club. The proposed special event fee is taking away money that could be put towards so many other amazing things in our schools and towards things that will benefit our community outside of the school. As a four-time of the Clayton's Do the Right Thing Award, I would like to urge the City Council to do the right thing and vote against the proposed special event fees. Thank you very much.
Our next speaker is Christine. If you can please make your way to the podium.
Hi, everybody. I'm here tonight because of the special fee, the changes that you're going to make to the special fees events. I want to say that the fee termination was put on the agenda rather quite shyly, not full of transparency. That was put on at the last minute, Jeff, and it wasn't clear to everybody that that was even going to be on the agenda. We have 4 CBCA members on the council, yet only 2 are going to the meetings. Why is that? Where have you 2 been for the CBCA? Ever since the termination of the fees, you are 2 no-shows. And that's ridiculous. You know you should be ashamed of yourselves, and you are. That's why you're not showing up. Also, everybody realizes that these fees affect large groups. What is the large group in Clayton that is hosting events? The CBCA. This is a targeted, mean-spirited fee schedule. And I think you all need to look at it again. Unfortunately, when I went to Sip and Sweet with Brett, I said I wasn't going to call people out. But it's really hard right now because it's really obvious on who the bad guys are. You guys need to do your due diligence, research the fees, like many people have said, and come up with a better solution than this fee schedule. I'm urging you not to pass this schedule today. You should be ashamed of yourselves. That's it.
Our next speaker is Howard. If you can please make your way to the podium.
Okay, sorry. My name is Howard Geller, and I've been the past mayor of Clayton twice. I've been on the city council for 8 years. I was the past president of the CBCA 4 times. I don't know how many times I ran the golf tournament. I created and put on the concert series for 16 years in the city of Clayton. As I probably can tell, I really love the town, and I will do everything I can in my power not to let anybody ruin that town, Mr. Wan. Mayor Wan and our city council, the CBCA, and their volunteers have been the Parks and Recreation Department of the city that the city never could afford. Let that sink in. We are the Parks and Recreation Department of the city that the city never could afford. And guess what? You still can't afford it. When the master agreement was created, this was one of Gary Napper's biggest considerations because he knew we needed people downtown. We needed events downtown. The restaurants were starving. The little shops couldn't open up. We couldn't even get anybody to come in our town to fill a storefront. So he thought that this was a great win-win for the city. In fact, he called it a win-win-win for the city because we were the Parks and Recreation facility. Check with your sister cities and you'll find out that department will cost you millions of dollars, especially over the many years that we were that department. The burden of proof to charge a fee is on the city to prove actual costs for services. Before you can come up with a fee schedule, most importantly, again, a city cannot make a profit. You've heard it from me, you've heard it from 10 other people in here, and you'll keep hearing it. Streets and roads are paid by all of us in our taxes. A city cannot block off a street and arbitrarily say, I'm going to call this a park and charge you a fee. It doesn't work that way. We pay taxes to use those streets. Everyone does. When there's a fair, those people that come into town pay taxes to have the right to use that. Look up the definition of a park, Mr. Wan. It's not your definition. This town was built on volunteerism. Major Wan, Mayor Juan, I'm sorry. Well, you're suggesting to our population that we should volunteer our time, earn money, and give it to the city because you're short. That's not how it works, Mayor Juan. Our volunteers do not work for you. They are volunteers for the CBCA, and you don't deserve to get a cut of that money unless you earn it. If Clayton takes their cut, we would have to reduce the amount of money we pay to each of the nonprofits that have relied on us all these years for to exist. Most of them, we are them. We give them the money so they can open up their doors and do things for other people, our museum and all the other lovely groups that are in town. If we give you your cut, guess what? Needed school supplies may stop. Team equipment and even downtown improvements will stop. We won't have the money to give to you. Isn't that a shame?
Thank you, Mr. Geller. Yeah, your time has...
Can I have one more paragraph, sir? No?
No, thank you.
I didn't think so. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Lauren.
I don't do this, but I'm doing it today. My name is Lauren Kindorf, and I have lived in Clayton for 30 years. While I have never felt the need to speak to the City Council, I also have never felt as deeply disheartened as I do right now about what is happening in our community. I'm not a member of the CBCA, but I have always highly respected and appreciated their hard work and generosity. Regarding the proposed fee schedule, I have recently heard council members state that taxpayers have been subsidizing CBCA-sponsored events. In my view, this has cast a shadow on the CBCA, an organization that has always paid in full the amounts invoiced from the city. They have paid in good faith to ensure cost recovery for city services and use. Cost recovery is expected. Arbitrary fees are uncalled for. The fundraising success of the CBCA is not Clayton's golden goose to take advantage of in addressing city budget concerns. I have also heard the CBC has benefited from the mutually agreed upon MOU created 15 years ago. There was actually respectful conversation about this in late 2022 where the CBC said this was an okay agreement. Then it was abruptly terminated by the council just months later. Totally baffling. More recently, the question of who wins has come up. As CBC donates all of their profits to community groups, schools, deserving students, and also the city itself, supporting special events and projects and needs of the city, it's not the CBCA who benefits, it's the community and the city who wins. There's also been talk of maintaining the small town feel of Clayton. As I look at the CBCA, what could be more small town than a grassroots group of all volunteers bringing wonderful events to our community, then donating it back to deserving groups and individuals? No need for paid Chamber of Commerce or for-profit event planners. What exemplifies a small town more than that? As member of our city council, do you believe it's reasonable to ask a nonprofit, all-volunteer organization to fill the city coffers? To ask a group to pay $7,000 a day, a total of $42,000 a year for their 3 events, resulting in a sudden 70% increase in what is owed for the same events? I listened to our new city manager and hear someone who has experienced knowledge to look at the bigger picture, who is already working to improve city efficiency and reasonable working conditions for our city staff, who I believe will work with the city council to create a smoother track for our city, including the rails that lead to financial stability. Let's give it a chance. In the meantime, as I begin my 31st year on El Portal Drive, it is my hope that members of the City Council will find it within their sense of decency, the community spirit, and with respect for the city's citizens of Clayton, not to target the hardworking, generous CBCA as a means to the financial end. An action where the city wins.
The last speaker card I have in person is for Rebecca. If you can please make your way to the podium.
Good evening, council members and fellow city residents. I don't have anything prepared. I get too emotional when I start thinking about this. But first, I want to second everything AJ said wholeheartedly. He nailed it. The city of Clayton is not a destination place, but the CBCA makes it that. We don't have a Chamber of Commerce, a Parks and Recreation, and CBCA gives everything back to this community. And these fees are strictly to punish CBCA for some unknown reason. And you don't seem to care. Everybody that gets up and speaks is in favor of CBCA and CBCA paying their fair share, paying the cost, but you don't listen and you don't care. And you need to start caring because election time is coming. Just letting you know.
Mayor Juan, I have one more speaker. He's going to make his way to the podium. Yep.
Okay, so type talking and it'll come up, right? Great. Listen, I've been listening to a lot of passion tonight from everybody, and I am so thrilled to be part of that, just like I'm sure all 5 of you believe in what you're doing is right. I think, council, tonight you have an opportunity to build a bridge, not a wall. And that building a bridge means you need to vote no on this. I've jotted down some points here. I'm going, $36,000 increase is all you're going to get, but it's costing you $35,000, and you're a finance person. Why would you spend $35,000 to generate $36,000? That doesn't make any sense. So please, let's think about this. Let's build a bridge tonight, not a wall. Thank you.
Mayor Juan, I do not show any hands raised on this item via Zoom.
Okay, thank you. All right, with that, I will close public comment and move to questions and discussion. Are there questions from council?
Yes, please, thank you. Multiple conversations I've had in the past few weeks regarding this topic with multiple residents. What has been brought up on several occasions is the legal opinion on this particular fee. Not necessarily the fee schedule in general, but the special use fee we're talking about, the closure of the streets and the fees itself. So what I would like is a two-part answer, Mala, from you to be in public, so those who are asking the questions could hear that. The first part of that is, can and do we have the right to, as a city, to shut down streets and call it a private use facility? That's question number one. And the second question is, relative to the fee which we are proposing in its high value and not being cost recovery, is there any potential legal exposure associated with charging that fee? That's question number two.
In terms of question number one, the vehicle code does allow a city to close its public streets for special events. So the city is authorized to do so and has done so in the past, as numerous cities in California consistently do. So you are allowed to close your streets for special events. In this case, you are charging, I think, to get to your second question, what is a fee and not a tax under Prop 26. And we have reviewed it and analyzed it, and we think it's akin to use of a city facility. The city streets are being exclusively used for a special event, and the city, in that case, under Prop 26, is not limited to cost recovery, not limited to a reasonable cost of service. The city can charge a higher amount, which in this case is being proposed.
So as a follow-on question to that, again, the fee that is chosen to be charged, can that be arbitrary with no apples and apples comparison? I mean, if it's chosen to be something exorbitant, is there any liability for choosing that, or do we just suffer the ability of whoever might use it deciding not to use it?
There's always risk with anything we do, so I can't, even if we have a 100% guarantee of winning, which I will never say is the case, I can't tell you that we don't have any exposure. However, the city can charge what it believes the property is worth. Obviously, if no one comes to use the property and we have no special event permits pulled, maybe that's a fee that wants to be revisited, because maybe, similar to purchasing a piece of property, if you charge a price that no one wants to pay, you're not going to get use out of the property. So it's something, I think, to be considered. As I understand, the city has looked at other fees that have been charged for use of city streets in other cities and tried to analyze those properties with the city of Clayton. But I do think the city can consider increased rates, as it has considered in this case. Increased fees, as I should be more accurate.
Just if I'm hearing you correctly, if the comps from multiple cities throughout multiple venues for similarly closed items are substantially lower than ours, and we choose a much higher fee, there is no liability to us because we have chosen that fee as a reasonable cost.
Again, there's no requirement to use reasonable cost under Prop 26, given the use of the streets. So you're not limited to that. In comparison to other cities, I can't say if other cities have chosen to reduce their costs and maybe not charge what they think the value of the street or the value of the facility is. So when we're using comps like that, it's hard to say if other cities have grandfathered in previous events and whatnot. Those are choices that other cities have made. So I can't, it's not an exact apples to apples comparison.
Awesome. And thank you for bringing the term up, grandfathering, because that is something that's been mentioned before, that Walnut Creek had done so when they went to a higher fee schedule to cover cost. Given that there is one, possibly two entities out there that would be impacted like this, is there any potential legal liability for it being perceived as a punitive action by those entities?
They may perceive it as that, but at this point, the city is just charging this fee to anyone who holds an event based on the size of the event. So this applies across the board to any group that may apply for a permit.
Thank you. That's my only questions right now.
Thanks, Mal. I just have a follow-up question to a point that you made just a second ago to Councilmember Cloven. You mentioned that the city can charge what the property is worth. What is that based on?
That's a good question. I think I will defer to Nitish, who did the analysis, but I do think he did look at other cities and tried to do some, what I'll call comps. But the city is not, again, limited, but I think Nitish did some analysis and trying to come up with that number.
Okay, and please come to the mic, and I'll clarify why I'm asking this. If we're basing it off of what we think our city streets are worth, right? We're basing it off what we think our property is worth. I don't really know that the comps in another city really matter at that point, but I will hear from Nitish because I'd like to know what those values are based off of.
No, that's just the fees being charged. As Mala said, this is not part of the Prop 26 requirement, and this fees has been presented to council and is presented to council on June 26 as the fees that we are proposing from staff's perspective. It's council's decision to set the fees at the level they want to be set at. We looked at one of the neighboring agencies that have similar type of facility when they do similar type of events, and we presented it in the last meeting, and they charge somewhere around $10,000. We propose a fee to you, and it's your council's decision to set the fees at whatever rate they want to set it as. So,
Can you elaborate a little bit more on exactly what that other entity was using the streets for? What was the group who rented the fees?
It was provided to council in the last meeting with City of Walnut Creek. We included, as they have one of the similar type events that the Clayton is holding. Again, it's council's decision, whatever fees they want to set. This is not a cost recovery fee. This, as Mala pointed out, I think she answered all the questions.
Okay, so we went through this on June 26th, and I can already feel the hostility coming towards me here at the dais, so I'm going to help dial it back just a little bit, I hope.
Yeah.
I'm trying to understand if we're being compared to something that's in downtown Walnut Creek or Heather Farm Park.
Again, we presented to you on June 26th that this is a fee that council can choose at whatever rate they want to be. This is Clayton fees. This is set by Clayton Council.
Okay, so I appreciate you saying that, because in all of the meetings that we had, council kept saying that the consultant recommended it. And so you came up with this fee based on the comps. You're recommending it, and we can approve it or not.
Yeah.
So based on everything that you've heard in all of these meetings from everybody who's speaking, and clarifying what the use would be for, how it's a benefit, et cetera, do you still stand by $10,000 for a street closure? It's not your call to make, but it was your recommendation.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to understand, do you still stand by $10,000 per day to close down the streets?
Yes, that's
is a reasonable number?
We presented to council as a recommended action, and it's council's decision.
I understand. And so can you explain to me the difference for the tiering?
Tiering for the, it's been presented to council at different number of participants. Council can change any of that at their discretion.
Fair, but we can't make a determination in a decision. At least, I think somebody said, well, not informed, what was it that Ed said? I think he called it, well, use your wisdom to do analysis. I'd like to be wise in this choice, so my question is, what is the difference in 500 people versus 10,000 on the tiering? I'm trying to understand the wear and tear.
We looked at the similar type agency, and they have this fees. We presented to council. It's a recommendation to council. I don't make policy decisions or recommendations. It's council's decision again.
Okay, so in Sonoma, where they have actual street fairs, they charge $2,000 to close off the street. I mentioned that on June 26th. That's like a nationally known place to come, where people fly out here to go to things like that. We're Clayton, but we get people from the surrounding areas. I'm trying to understand, if we're trying to compare apples to apples, and I understand that you didn't actually do that analysis for us in this case, how can we justify $10,000 for a street closure when Sonoma's charging $2,000? And I get it's our choice, but I need you to help us make a wise choice.
Each agency has their own different policies. Sonoma is, it's more for like a destination, so they have the economic benefits. They look at different things. This is a recommendation to this council. This is the council's decision. At whatever rate they want to set this at whatever tiering structure, it's council. It's a recommendation to council, but council makes that decision. So it's your decision.
Go ahead.
I'm just curious, before you presented this $10,000 recommendation to council, did you hear that number from any conversation outside of conversation with the council?
No, I've been working on the direction of the city manager, and previous city managers, so I was working with the city manager, so anything with this, I work with the city manager on the recommendation. This item gets put together in front of you. We do the work, we work with the city manager, and we put the staff report in front of you. And that's what we did today on this item. Again, I will say one more time, that's the council's decision. Council can set this As Mala pointed out, this is not driven by Proposition 26. You get to set the policy in here.
I'm just trying to figure out if there are any outside influences that helped you, other than the research, that you did get that number.
Not that I know of, that this is not something that somebody influenced me. I work with the city, under the city council, under the city manager.
Were any other council members in the room, particularly the mayor, when you sat with the city manager?
I don't remember any of this. I was working with the city manager.
That's not, so
Yeah.
you remember sitting with the city manager, and my question
work with
is,
the
was
city
the
ma-
mayor in the room with you when that happened?
I don't remember the mayor being there, but I work with the city manager on this item. This is something that was asked for us to look at. We looked at one of the agencies that have something similar. This is new for city council here. You get to make that decision, the policy decision. So, and that's why, it's in front of all 5 of you today.
Okay, I know the answer to that is yes. That's why I keep asking you. It's yes. So I'm going to answer
Hold
for
on a
you.
second. You're answering for me?
Yes.
That's not correct.
Yeah.
You were there.
No.
Okay.
Interesting, but no. Are there any other further questions for our finance consultant?
He's leaving it to us, so no, maybe I'll just direct him to you guys as we keep going.
Sure. Any other questions from council?
What are we going to do next? We've already done public comment. We're going to deliberate, or do you want to just do that now?
Questions or discussion is fine. It's all,
Sure.
It's all together.
Yeah, because we're not doing public comment now. So do you want to go? Do you want me to keep going? What do you want to do?
I just thought I'd acknowledge that we had a meeting in March, which was very well attended given the short notice of the discussion for cancellation of the agreement. Sprung on us at the last moment on a Friday with a council member who had already announced they're being on vacation. And fortunately, there was enough word being put out that the citizens of our town could hear about that and be able to voice their thoughts. And at that meeting, there were 15 plus residents who stood up and stated their disdain for the decision and how it was brought. We had a similar conversation in June when Nitish presented his thoughts. Our room was packed with people who had their opinion, and even though they were shortened in their ability to voice that opinion, they stated it very clearly that they were against this particular part, this excess fee. And then we have a room tonight that's filled with residents who are quite passionate about the disagreement about this particular fee. Now, I want to be clear. We have a fee schedule here that has escalated from previous years. And we appreciate the work that Tish got together to put this fee schedule. I'm not questioning the fact that the fee schedule has some pretty exorbitant higher charges. For instance, the parks benches and then the use of for birthdays and whatnot. That's gonna hurt. That's gonna hurt a lot. What we're questioning is this special use fee, which I know you're saying it's not targeted, but there are 2 groups at this point that would be paying for that. And neither of those groups have received a whole lot of support recently from council members who are purporting to support this. And I just want to be clear that it appears punitive. It just appears punitive. And given all the passionate voices over 3 meetings and the lack of listening to them, it's a bit challenging. This could have been handled so much easier, and we could have got to a better place. It was handled poorly from the start. There was no need to urgently cancel the CBCA contract, especially when you didn't have a fee schedule in place that was going to be passed in time, and then giving them mixed signals throughout the process about whether they can book anything past June 3rd or June 30th or not. I mean, here it is, August 15th, and we're now just talking about passing this piece. We have a lot of things to do. And And we just went to a budget cycle in June where you said, hey, let's put $36,000 in our budget because we're going to get $36,000. We're not going to have that. So I heard 400,000 of you. I'm counting $300,000 in the hole this year. We're not going to get the $36,000 you thought you were going to get from that. And what we could get possibly from these fees is infinitesimal to the structural deficit, which you spoke about in July of 2021. And we had a conversation about in February 1st, 2022. I urge all of you, go please download the video from February 1st, 2022, when all 5 of us here in the City Council were talking about our structural deficit and how to fix it, and we were all in agreement. And Mayor Wallen was the one who said, hey, let's talk about an escalator. Let's be prudent about how much it should be. Maybe it should be 400, maybe something more. But we were all in agreement we should go in that direction. And it just blew up. We have big issues, and this is not going to solve it. So why are we even talking? I reject the idea of even talking about this special fee increase, and we totally talk about the structural deficit that we have punted down the road, which is so important to talk about. We shouldn't be talking about raising the fees on above cost recovery until we have a larger conversation about how we're going to fix our budget problems in the future. If this becomes a part of it, then we'll make that conscious decision then. Not now. Because right now, it just seems punitive.
Too much stuff up here. I concur with Councilmember Cloven, but I know that that's not a surprise to anybody because I have, since this topic came up, including when I was out of the country, missed the first meeting. So several people have already mentioned this already, but I just want to give a little timeline on how the phrasing has changed. I am not against raising fees outright because I realize that our fees were very outdated and they were old. That makes sense to me. And so for that exercise, I do appreciate it. I do think that we are definitely going to have people who have their block parties, their birthday parties, their you name it, graduation parties at the park, et cetera. I think we're going to miss out on those fees because people are just going to take their chances and go sit at the park early in the morning, try to get a bench, reserve it, hope that nobody's reserved it. And if they do, they're just going to move to the next table. No one's going to pay the amounts of money that are being asked for these to have a birthday party, et cetera. So I mentioned this at a couple of meetings, that it would be nice to see what the actual fees would be and maybe even start smaller to see if people actually bite. That way you can actually get them to realize the fees are going up instead of this large jump. That'd be nice. But we didn't. You guys went ahead and approved it, and here we are tonight. And keep in mind, everyone here, we don't have to pass this tonight. I don't know if that's clear to everybody. It's a public hearing. We don't have to pass it. But what I would like everybody here to know is apparently this is a done deal, according to a council member's husband last Wednesday, who looked me and my husband in the face when my husband asked, are you ready for next Tuesday? And we have this conversation about, what do you mean? What's going to happen? And he told her, it's going to be a packed room. People will be there. And the remark was, is this about the fees again? This is from the spouse. What are people worried about? It's a done deal already. It's a done deal, huh?
My husband did not say it was a done deal.
I don't lie, so let's be clear.
And also, your husband was threatening me with the 200 members.
Let's hold on.
200 angry members.
My
please.
husband didn't threaten. What he said is he's hearing. Oh, this is good.
Wait,
no, I
hold
like
on
it.
one moment.
Nope. I like this.
I don't think
This is
that
good.
it's really necessary to bring in conjecture.
It's completely inappropriate, but I want to be very clear.
So
if
you
people
could
think that I'm going to
conclude
sit
your
here,
comments.
I'm going to keep doing all the comments. If people think I'm going to sit here on the dais and be quiet and not share what's happening, you're wrong. I will not be silenced. I will not be quiet. I don't care that there's an election coming up next year. That doesn't scare me from speaking. If I'm not reelected, I'm not reelected. But I'll be gosh darn if I'm going to hold my tongue. I'm going to let you guys know exactly what is happening. I hope everybody's clear. I don't need to lie. So the timeline of what occurred from the time that we've been discussing all of this. Mayor Wan's blog on Facebook started off on March 7th as cost recovery, not for profit. March 8th, another recap was he wanted the CBCA to pay their fair share for the city to recover actual costs. On the 19th, it was fair share of cost recovery. The 29th of March, all-in rate. By May 18th, he wanted to continue the discussions to pursue a master use agreement, which is great. I hope that we continue to keep doing that. And now we get to where we are just a few weeks ago, where it's got to be a win-win, and now we're talking about revenue sharing. And I get that minds can change and things can morph, but as there was opposition coming from all of you, the tenor changed, and there were pivots. Okay, and now we're full on profit. We started out at March 7th, cost recovery, not profit, to literally wanting to have a profit based off of how much the CBCA brings in. Therefore, they can afford to pay it. I agree with Councilmember Cloven. That sounds punitive. There's zero reason for a city to be profiting off of a nonprofit. Zero. And it shouldn't matter if they don't give away every single penny. It shouldn't. Let them deal with that with the IRS, et cetera. That we shouldn't be in the business of, oh, this pocket over here has money, so let's go steal it or take it or do whatever. We got to call the fee to take it from them. What are we doing? All of y'all should be embarrassed. I am embarrassed when I go to other meetings and people are asking us, what is wrong with your city? What is wrong with your city council? And keep that in your mind as we host the mayor's conference in a few weeks. It's embarrassing. I hope you don't get that when you're there. It's embarrassing. So think about that. Think about the fact that this was already a done deal and the fact that this does not have to happen tonight. You guys can go back, revisit, or on the fly, decide that you don't want to charge this ridiculous amount that you guys are making up and charging. It can be changed, but you guys decided on the 26th of June you wanted to stick with it. You gave haircuts. Let's see how you guys roll the dice today and how you decide to vote. I'm going to be a hard no unless this is only pass the master use fees and take away the ridiculously high, what are we calling it now? It was a street closure fee, now it's a special event fee, et cetera. Especially when the packet says we have to come up with a special events policy, et cetera, which we're going to do later. I know that's about the city events, but there's still time to tweak that piece, and it's a huge misstep if you guys don't do that, especially since you can't figure out exactly what it covers. It's, a couple streets, a corral, et cetera. I'm sure it's going to change tonight when you guys tell me what it means from what it was on June 26th, but can't wait to hear what you guys have to say.
Does that conclude your comments?
For now.
I just also want to acknowledge that in the March to June and this meeting, not one person from the public spoke in favor.
If there's one thing I have to agree with Councilman Cloven on, is there is a major structural situation we have to face. And I think we tested that with a survey that you sponsored where the public told us they were not in favor of a parcel tax. Am I right?
You're right. We learned a lot from that.
Right. But there are pieces to the entire financial puzzle that we face. And this is just but one of them, which hasn't been looked at seriously for some time. So, yeah, I appreciate the fact that no one spoke up in favor of us reviewing this or implementing it as submitted. But I still rely on the fact that the staff did an excellent job in coming up with some recommended fees and some cost recovery measures. To that point, we need to address this piece today. There'll be another piece in the next month and another piece thereafter and so on. Ultimately, coming up to how do we solve the structural problem as so far defined this evening. The only thing that I see in terms of flexibility in this proposed fee schedule may be, and I underline may, be the % discount that we're offering. That's the only flexibility I see. I respect what the staff has done. They have come up with good numbers, and I accept them. They're the professionals in that regard. Now, if there is some wiggle room with the discount, then I'm open to hearing it and see what might be a reasonable amount. We are giving this organization the steepest discount of all of them. Anybody coming in from outside of Clayton is going to pay twice as much as they would. That true?
Half as much of a discount.
Whatever the difference is on the discount. You get my point. But I think that's the only piece we have where there's flexibility in it, because obviously the citizens of this committee are not in favor of a parcel tax.
So, thank you for that, Jim. I really want to appreciate the fact that you and I are in the same place, that cost recovery is paramount. I've always agreed with you from the very first time you said that. The fee schedule minus the special event fees gets cost recovery for everything, and CBCA and every other entity that uses the features that we have on the fee schedule will cause us to get cost recovery, including now personable charges, which we didn't have previously. So we are getting full cost recovery, and there is no problem from any entity towards paying that. It'll be more expensive for private citizens, but the entities don't have a challenge with paying for that. Now, you're right. Let's talk about the parcel tax, because I love that you brought that up. On that meeting on February 1st, all 5 of us sat here and said, you know what? We got a problem. I sent you a text right after you did your July 2021 statement on our financial challenges, and said thank you. I appreciate what you put your neck out there as council member and actually told the whole citizenry what our problems are. And you were the first one to do it. Now, you criticized our mayor at the time, CW, for not acting on it. But I heard it, and I acted on it immediately when we got a new city manager. When Raina came on board, I said, we got to tackle this now. And she immediately went to a 10-year financial schedule. Go, holy crap, this sucks. We are in trouble. And we all talked about it. I go, wow, what are we going to do about it? We all agreed that a parcel tax, now you didn't like 400, you said that sounds kind of high, and we got a lot of guff for some of the people, and you said, yeah, I got a lot of, you said shit for it. I apologize, but you were able to explain the need for it within a minute, and everybody got to the right point. At that point, we said, hey, we need to go start telling our citizens, and let's find out what they want. What we learned, Jim, was exactly what you said. They don't want to spend a lot of money on a parcel tax. They didn't say they didn't want to spend any. They didn't say they didn't want to spend a lot. And that's exactly what it was supposed to do, is trying to figure out what that was. So thank you. And we saved money, because by putting a parcel tax on the 2022 ballot, it would have failed miserably. And that's what we also learned from that. So that $30,000 we spent saved us $50,000 to $60,000 in a parcel, in a ballot measure that wouldn't have passed in the first place. So we learned a lot from that.
I would disagree. That ballot measure would have never gone forward, so it didn't save us anything. But regardless,
I disagree with what you just said.
That's fine. I'm comfortable with that.
I know you are.
I would say that the discussion of a parcel tax is not germane to the topic at hand, and we're straying far from what is on the agenda. So I'd table any discussion of a parcel tax.
The reason why I'm bringing it up is because it is directly relevant to this special fee which you're trying to pass tonight.
I think it's only relevant
cost
to
recovery
the extent,
is
no,
on the table?
It's not relevant. And the reason why is because the only way that you can construe it being relevant is if you believe that this is done in order to balance some kind of budget or to get revenue. But it's not.
It's not being proposed to gain revenue we do not have.
It's not done with any connection to the financial condition of the city.
Okay.
So-
Then why do it?
Because it's the prudent thing to do.
Okay.
It doesn't, if we were in a favorable budget position, I would make the exact same argument and it would carry the same weight as if we were not. Because the merit of charging a fee for rent of city facility stands on its own. It's irrelevant, the budget situation. The argument does not rely on that.
So are you saying that the staff report is incorrect?
I'm saying exactly the words that I'm saying.
Page 119 of the staff report, budget/cost impact. The estimate revenue from the adoption of these fees will increase the general fund budget by approximately $36,000.
You've read the staff report.
Yes. What you just said is not being used to raise revenue. What is this then?
That's what the staff report says.
Oh my God.
I feel like you're trying to
It's like
trap me.
sociopathy. I'm not trying to do anything except for you just said,
The rationale- see, I don't think you're hearing me.
I heard you.
Okay.
I heard you, so don't gaslight me sitting up here on the dais.
I'm not.
Okay.
I'll say the exact same thing, but in a different tone.
Okay.
The rationale to support the argument in favor of the fee schedule is not dependent on the revenue that it may generate.
You would have done it anyway. So if that's the case, why can't you then take off this amount? Why is charging $10,000 for a street closure fee or a special event fee, why is that the number?
That particular number?
Yeah.
That was the number that was recommended. It was the number that we discussed as a council, and that was the number that we collectively decided was the appropriate amount. So
That's
that
not
is
my
why that's the
question.
number.
My question is, you said you would have done this regardless because it's a prudent thing to do, meaning, I'm taking that to mean, and correct me if I'm wrong, you would have changed these fees because they were too low, the actual fees for reserving facilities. This special event fee is brand new. Are you telling me that putting this in here was the prudent thing to do?
Yes.
Why?
Because if any entity is to rent the city facilities, then they should pay a rental fee.
What, other than
Because
the CBCA?
The city isn't in the business of allowing its facilities to be used for free. And I think what the operative question then is, should the facilities of the city be able to be used for free? Because in the past, they were. And so if the answer to that is no, that's your answer. If you or anyone else believes that the city facilities should be used or be able to be utilized for free, then we will disagree.
Okay, so are we agreeing that the city facilities are the streets?
Certainly.
Okay.
All city infrastructure is the city facilities.
Okay, so we had a street closure fee because Pride paid for it. It's in our current fees now before this is even passed, and it's $144. So there were already fees being paid for the facility. You've just now ramped that up. So I understand that was waived for the CBCA 15 years ago and that you canceled that contract. But how do we go from $144 to $10,000? That's the question I'm asking.
I'll repeat the same answer. That was the amount that was recommended by our consultant. That was what we discussed as a council, and that is what the number that we agreed to.
Okay, so yes, it is subject to consideration. He proposed it, the consultant proposed it. You don't have to go with that recommendation, which is what...
That's correct.
Correct. So there are lots of questions because I would think, given all of your expertise with numbers, this is something you would have questioned. How do we go from 144 to 10,000? If it's a facility and it's a street closure fee, why are we doing that? Why are you recommending that to us? You question everything else that staff does. Why was this not a question?
It was a question.
And I
what
also
was the
believe
answer?
in September
Okay.
that we are going to go into more of a city-sponsored event policy, correct? next month. And I'd like to just say a few words rather than
Oh, yeah,
make
I'll-
it a conversation back
I'm not
and
done with
forth,
my question yet, though.
Because I worked really hard on-
Reclaiming my time, I'm not done with my question on this first. And then I'm going to be done, I think. I'm trying to understand, trying to understand how we go from $144 to $10,000 for the same events. The streets were already being closed. If the argument was we've canceled that contract and we want you to pay a street closure fee, that makes sense to me. Pay the street closure fee. And maybe have it go up at the same amount that percentage that all the other fees went to for reserving other facilities around town. Why is that not an option? I think Vice Mayor Diaz said there's very little wiggle room or there's no flexibility. We have lots. You may answer,
Okay.
if you choose.
I believe I've already addressed that question, so I won't repeat myself.
It was your answer wasn't clear at all, and it would be nice if you could answer for me. Why are we going to $10,000? Or if that's the case, and you
Wait,
wanted to say,
How about we do it in a one-part question so that you don't,
sure. Why are we going to $10,000?
because that is the fee that was recommended by our consultant that we as a council discussed, and we as a council recommended to move forward in this public hearing.
Okay, why are we going to a tiered fee then instead of a flat fee?
Same answer.
It's not very wise because you could go to the lower tier and then still do haircuts if you wanted to. Because 700 people versus however many that $10,000 level tier is, it's the same wear and tear. It's the same facility. You're not even calling it wear and tear. You're saying using our facility. What difference does it make how many people come? The same streets get closed.
That was a multi-part question, so
Just you can answer the last part. What difference does it make how many people are here in town if the streets are still closed?
I don't think that's germane to the fee schedule.
It absolutely is, because it's tiered. You're
It is.
tiering it, and I'm asking, why would you accept that?
Because, again, I will give you the same answer. Do you want me to repeat it?
Actually, I would, because I
Sure.
want it
was
on a loop when
it
this is
was
like
the-
shared.
It was the fee recommended by our consultant that we discussed as a council, and we approved to move forward in this public hearing as a council.
Okay, and as a council, we can change that right now. Do you think it needs to be changed?
No.
Thank you.
Are you all set?
Was there a tiered structure recommended by Unitish? Or just
Yes.
the $10,000 fee?
You can look at the record, but it is there. The answer is yes. Did you have comments?
Yeah, I've got a couple of comments. And I'm not even going to get into it with anybody, not on the council or in the audience, but I just want to remind everybody why we began this process is because we had not looked at the master fee schedule in so long that no one in the council, no one on the staff could remember the last time that it was updated. And so the city as a whole agreed back in December to hire this firm, GovInvest, and Unetish to come back with us with his recommendation. And there are, it's not just about the special event fee, there are more than 200 fees that are on there. And we appreciate it took months and months and months of due diligence, staff interviews, really trying to assess what staff time, the value of staff time. And the overwhelming impression was that we were severely underestimating our staff time and accounting for it. And so that's really why we did this, right? This is one solution to getting to financial stability. We're not trying to make money off one organization to balance the budget. We know that our problems are larger than that. The cost of everything is going up, and we completely understand that this might feel painful to some, but I look at it the other way. I feel like our downtown is a jewel, right? We live in a beautiful, idyllic community, and our downtown is the venue, right? And so the only way that there can be these beautiful events and gatherings by wonderful nonprofits, and I do say that, we have wonderful nonprofits, is you're renting the venue, right? So when you're having a wedding, you have to rent the venue. When you're having an event, you have to rent the venue. And our downtown, and let me finish.
Order,
Our
please.
downtown is our venue. And so I don't think anyone is disputing all the hard work that the CBCA has done for decades and decades. Again, a very good friend of mine is one of the founders. And Christine, I actually have been to a meeting since you and I talked. So you might not remember that. Otherwise, I've had conflicts in my schedule, and I apologize for not being there. But I just want to say that we're here not just representing one organization or another. We're representing the financial well-being of our city and 11,000 residents who live here. And so what I say tonight is I want us to approve these rates, and then I want us to reassess, and I know our city manager will do his due diligence to reassess in 1 year's time. Maybe it's not going to be 36,000. Maybe it's going to be less than that. Maybe it's going to be more. If we keep saying it's too much and nobody's going to pay it, we don't want that to be the self-fulfilling prophecy. And I know that in September, we are going to sit down and we're going to do some fine-tuning to the city special event process and policy, and we'll make some additional modifications then. But thank you.
Did you have any comments you want to share?
Talking about the nicety of downtown, I would like you to walk out the door tonight and go look at that Grove Park. It is a disaster. We resodded it, we reseeded it, and it's still got holes all over the place. Look at all the benches. They need to be power washed. Nobody is taking that seriously. Yet we are out there every 2 weeks trying to make I don't know what, lemonade out of a lemon. But I got to tell you, it's a challenge. We need to get money from our special events so we can maintain that park downtown. It needs to be done. It's been overlooked for 2 years, and it's been replanted and resodded, and it looks like hell.
So maybe we shouldn't have concerts in the Grove there then, every 2 weeks.
That's just one event. There have been several other events that have taken place downtown that have used the park.
Yeah.
So that's fine.
The intention is to get fees from CBCA for the Grove Park. Is that the intention?
No.
Well, no, I'm asking Councilmember Diaz because that's what I just heard.
Are you asking me what?
Is the intention to get fees from CBCA through the special events to
Absolutely
work
not.
on the
That
Grove?
is not. The
Then what relevant is
the
what you just said?
CBCA gave us a token donation this year. In the past, they gave us more. But they are not being asked to take care of that. We'll get the money. We'll get it fixed some other place because there is a park budget right now for that. That's the answer you're asking for.
Yeah, so it should be coming then. So I'm trying to understand the point that you were just making, Vice Mayor Diaz, on how horrible the Grove looks and that there needs to be some upkeep and the benches power wash,
Let me
et
ask you
cetera.
a question. When's the last time you really looked at that park? Go down there and look at it.
I was just there the other night after I had dinner at Groveside Bistro.
I
with
didn't see
Tamara.
you out there last Saturday when we had a concert.
I wasn't in town, sir. I was in Hawaii.
Whatever. I want to know the last
But
time
I'm
you
glad
went down and looked at that park.
I just told you. I just said I was there Sunday, August 2nd.
And is it still the gem? Is it still the gem of the town?
Well, that's subjective, but again, there are Grove Park funds to take care of exactly what you're talking about for maintaining the park. It shouldn't be coming from other entities. There's a Grove Park district for that.
The fund is
And I am
empty.
not suggesting that the CBCA foot the bill on that. That is absolutely the last thing I would expect.
I understand, but Councilmember Cloven and I were trying to understand your point about
I kind
the
of
wear
think
and
that
tear
this is
on the
beyond
park,
the
et
scope.
cetera.
I think this is beyond the scope of our discussion.
Yeah, you go on ahead and ram it through the
But
way y'all were going to.
I
I'll
would
wait to hear.
say one point that you raised, Councilmember Tripiano, the fee study that we engaged GovInvest for, I think there was a little bit of confusion. The actual cost was $14,875. It was mentioned earlier, 35,000 early in the evening. That's incorrect. You can see that agreement at the December 2022 meeting. Embedded within that number, or at that same time, was multiple different services, and so it may be confusing as to what was for what, but in the staff report it does delineate the items. So the fee study was that number that I just said that I can't remember, 14,875. So just as a matter of clarity. That was all I had on that one. Okay. Is there a motion on the table then?
I make a motion to postpone adopting these master fees tonight.
Second.
Well, I would make a substitute motion that we approve the fee schedule as indicated in the staff report. And looking for a second.
I'll second it.
Janet, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Trupiano?
Yes.
Councilmember Tillman?
I'm a hard no for the vocal minority who stood up earlier to say exactly what just now happened, which is that people would come here and speak and be completely ignored and their voices ignored after you heard the rationale and the fact that I heard last week that this is already a done deal. I'm a hard no.
Councilmember Cloven?
This is a real disappointment. I'm a hard no as well.
Vice Mayor Diaz?
Yes.
Mayor Juan?
I'd just like to acknowledge first that the CBCA and a number of other groups in town provide a great benefit to the community. I myself, on behalf of the city, am grateful for the work that's done, and I hope that that can continue. I do know that this would be an increase in the fees paid by some organizations, and that is never easy. But given our environment, the rising cost of all things, this fee schedule reflects those increases and is appropriate, and I vote yes. Thank you. That closes item 8A, and we will move on to item 7. Well, this is secondary item 7B. This is action items. We can take a 2-minute recess if it please the king.
That was very poor. That was very poor of you guys to do that. It's very not okay.
I'd love to talk. All right. It is time to come back to order. All right, time to come back to order. I don't know. It's really warm. Mr. Diaz. Good? All right. We are returning from recess. The next item on the agenda is staff direction on utilizing both ClearGov and, I'm not going to read the whole thing, it's item 7B. It's the secondary item 7, though. And I believe, is it our city manager just taking us away? Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. So what we're looking for today is, and I'm going to give a brief kind of synopsis of staff's desire, and then my number 2, Amy Walker, will give a brief presentation on ClearGov, and then we'll look for council's direction. Right now, we have a product called ClearGov that does a variety of things for the city. It will be our budget development tool in the future. It will be our digital budget book in the future. But tonight, we're talking specifically about the financial transparency aspect of ClearGov. For about a year now, the city has, on its webpage, had the ClearGov transparency software, which essentially is access for the community to be able to see the city's budget, and more importantly, the city's payable as we pay them in real time. So as staff makes these payments, we upload the detailed information to ClearGov, and you are able, through that link, to look up by vendor, by date range, and really have a lot of flexibility either on the site itself or downloading that information into Excel if that is more your preference, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Counter to that, we still currently bring the detailed 2-week history of those accounts payable in the council agenda. That is a static report that doesn't have the flexibility, is difficult to search, and was there probably because ClearGov was not in the past. Staff believes that removing the agenda 2-week static report is prudent for a variety of reasons. One, the ClearGov transparency tool, as I outlined, really provides a much greater level of transparency to the community because you can look it up by vendor, because you can select a variety of date ranges, not a static 2-week range. You really have access to the tips of your fingers what the city is spending its money on. Again, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You don't have to wait for a council agenda for that purpose. Additionally, if you're specifically looking to search for a vendor, you don't have to go through weeks and months of potential council agenda items to look for that. You simply can search by that vendor name. We believe this meets staff's, the council's policy desire of both being more transparent and more efficient in the organization. Additionally, as I come into the organization, one of my goals is to move our organization to being as efficient as possible. That's a culture change. And that culture change happens with sometimes very small items and sometimes very big items. This task, although it does increase staff time, because not only do they have to rerun the report, write the agenda, and then they go through the variety of workflow for the agenda process, changing this process to only use ClearGov for this purpose not only increases the transparency, as I mentioned, and access to the community, but it's a continued sign to staff of our culture change that we want to become more efficient. Because we are the smallest and less resourced agency in Contra Costa County, it is vital that we are as efficient as we possibly can be. I think you see through the years and why I'm here and what we've talked about is that we have a lot of foundational efficiency that we have to do in the future. And the staff that sits with me every day, all 27 of them in their variety of roles, I think are very excited, dedicated, and looking forward to those efficiencies. So staff's desire is to move to just ClearGov, not only for the transparency that it will provide the community, but for the sign that will show staff that this is the direction we want to move to and that that matters. And that moving and changing the culture of how we operate matters. And it's going to be on everything we look to do, from the smallest thing to the largest thing. So with that, I'll go ahead and turn it over to Ms. Walker to go over kind of a very quick synopsis of how easy ClearGov is to use.
Thank you, Brett. Good evening, Mayor Juan and council members. Brett stole my thunder a little bit, but what I want to add on to that is that I'm very passionate about process improvement and efficiencies. In my history, I've worked with much larger agencies, and so this has been a really great challenge to look at how can we really maximize staff time and the way they're dedicating their resources, and also making sure that if they're able to streamline certain things, then that will elevate the quality of the work that they provide. So I'm very mindful of the fact that this is a really tight-knit staff. I'm really impressed with all their hard work and institutional knowledge and the way they've welcomed me into the organization. And so with that, I will go ahead and go through this process. Thank you, Janet. Before I go too much farther, this entire PowerPoint, Janet kindly printed out and prepared, and it's over at the table if anybody, wants to take it home. So anyway, with that, if you go to the city's website, the City of Clayton website, right there on the home page, and I circled it in red, you see where it says fiscal year 2023-24 budget and financial transparency. When you click on that link, please advance, it will then direct you to this website, which is ClearGov. This is the City of Clayton's dedicated ClearGov site. And on this site, you have a couple different options for viewing the data. And if you'll advance to the next one. This first one here, it's a little hard to see on the screen, but that one is for the, hold on a second. Which one is it? Yeah, expenditures is what that little tab says. Now, the expenditures this tab is going to give you a high-level infographic. You can run it in a couple different ways. It's a fun tool to play with, but it's really just meant to be big picture. Big decisions are not made off of this. This is really a snapshot. And then if you'll go to the next one. And then this one is our checkbook. We have our checkbook open for the public to see. And what's cool about this is, like Brett mentioned, you can enter into the fields the date range if you wanted to isolate by a certain date range. If you wanted to see how much the city has spent with a very specific vendor, that's another option there. It's really cool to slice and dice this kind of data. When you have seen your reports in the past, it went through this process, like Brett said, and then also it is then compiled in the agenda packet, and it also takes your time as a council to look at these obligations every 2 weeks. Our recommendation is that we leave this portal, which is always available, as an option for you to examine the information at your convenience, because it's 24/7, like he said. Also, you have another option, and I put it there on the bottom. You can download the checkbook, and it gives you an entire running balance of our checkbook back to mid-2021. I think that's the last slide, right? Oh, right. And then this is the sample download. So this is what you've been getting in the past, but then this is also available to any citizen, any council member, anytime they like. And I'm open to any questions if you have questions about this platform.
Questions from council?
I have a couple of questions.
Sure.
Thank you, Amy. And I have been on ClearGov many, many times. It's a wonderful tool that I use on a pretty regular basis. And I'm just curious, do we know what kind of site traffic we are getting to ClearGov right now?
Oh, that's a great question. I would need to check with ClearGov to see if they can give us the analytics. Okay. I'm fairly certain they do have that, and the reason I say that is in previous agencies I used a very comparable program, okay, and we did monitor that. Now the big thing, the caveat there is that we need to make sure that the public knows this is available to them. So that was part of our hope this evening as well, just to bring the awareness that, hey, you don't have to wait for a council meeting to see what the latest accounts payables were.
Right. And one of the other things that I noticed, and this was in, I think I did mention this to our city manager, in the revenues and the expenditures, I didn't see a 2023. I saw 2022 and 2024. So I don't know if we're in the process of uploading information or not. And my very last question is, the data that we produce, that we've been producing currently in the agenda, where does that export come from? Does it come from ClearGov?
Yes.
So it's just exporting it, it's a snapshot in essence?
Correct.
Okay.
But it's a snapshot in time, so it's going to
Right.
have a very specific date range. It's not searchable, so if you really wanted to do some digging to kind of understand things more, I really encourage people to use the download. It's a pretty cool tool. You can, depending on how Excel savvy you are, you can run a pivot table. You can do a lot of different things with it.
But if you wanted to see the city's financial obligations you could go to ClearGov, but in the agenda, it kind of gives us that snapshot without having to go to the website and then download it yourself and pick the
Oh, you don't have to
parameters.
download it. That's an additional option for you. As soon as you're on the city website and you click that, the link, and then it redirects you to our specific ClearGov portal, if you scroll down at the bottom, it just has a running accounts payable list. In order to...
And that's in the
then,
checkbook.
Correct.
I'm on it right now.
Yes. And so then in order to create a static report, we then take that extra step as staff to download, make it pretty within the date parameters that's appropriate for the council meeting, put it in the agenda packet. And so just taking a step back, big picture, we're really looking at all of these cumulative ways we can maximize staff's time to cut out some of these tasks that when the automation already exists there.
And my very last question is, do we have a list anywhere of the check run dates? So if somebody was looking for the last check run, say, rather than go in and have to say, okay, August 1st to August 11th or July 1st to July 15th, could we list somewhere what those check runs are?
We always run the check runs every 2 weeks. I mean, it's part
Every
of
2 weeks? Okay.
Yeah.
So it's the 1st and the 15th or the...
Well, I think it's...
Yeah, I would say it's every 2 weeks is not necessarily perfectly aligned 1 to 15, but I think if the last one you saw in there was the 14th, you could assume the next one's the 28th, and
Okay.
yeah.
Got it.
And I will say that, the current practice of bringing it to council, that was customary for, I think, most agencies for a really long time. And if you just look at with technology and leveraging what we have available to us now, a lot of agencies have gone toward this just to look at every single way they can maximize staff's time.
No, and I appreciate that. I'm all about efficiency. I guess I'm a little old-fashioned. I do like to see that little snapshot in the agenda. So, okay, that's my last question. Thank you.
Additional questions from council? Thank you. Oh, go ahead.
I just want to say, and I kind of agree with Councilmember Kim on this matter. The thing that I use that lineup in the paperwork here is so that I can check and see and look for any potential discrepancies. And I believe that that's a responsibility of this city council to do that, to make sure that there are no checks being sent out to brother-in-laws or mother-in-laws or what have you. That's one of the things that I look for. That may be overly simplistic, but that's one of the fundamental responsibilities, I think, as a sitting city council member, that I have a responsibility to do that. In fact, at the time before we stopped having to go in there and sign checks, I used to go through each one of those checks very diligently to make sure that they were correct and that they were being paid at the right amount. And I used to question former city managers why I'm getting one check for $13.50 for a sprinkler, then the next one is for $500,000 to repave Main Street. And so we adjusted that. But I think that is a fundamental responsibility and role of the city council, is to review those before they're sent out to the public.
Well, I do appreciate that perspective. I will say that our staff has internal controls so that type of activity does not occur. And that does fall within the operational domain, which is the staff's responsibility. The obligations that you see in your council packet are actually in arrears. So they are transactions that have already been processed, but for transparency, we have brought them to you historically.
And I respect that, and I thank you for that clarification. But still, I like being able to look at them and review them. Thank you.
Sure, of course.
Thank you, Amy, for the presentation. I just have a quick question on that last piece. The procedure, even though council or the mayor, or vice mayor as their backup, coming in to sign the checks, even though that process was removed, staff is still doing that in-house, right?
Oh, absolutely. We always have internal controls.
Of course.
Yes.
So a council member could go in at any point during that time and ask to see that if they would like to tick and tie.
Absolutely.
And then I think my last question is, I think the goal is to get rid of redundancies, which you've said, and to make staff more efficient.
Yeah.
I heard from a couple people that this would be, I want to call it a game changer because that's me synthesizing what their words were. But it would definitely save time, and that you're looking to us to actually help you guys streamline, get staff where they need to be.
Mm-hmm.
Do I have that right?
That's correct.
Okay.
And we've already had ClearGov for a few
Exactly.
years. And
Yes.
so I think, back to your point, Councilmember Trupiano, the more we can inform the public that we are opening our checkbook and that they are welcome to analyze it and run their own custom reports, or they can just scroll down on the site and see the entire running checklist if they, or not checklist, checkbook if they want. That empowers citizens to also be informed. So we're just hoping that this could be one more efficiency in in all of our endeavors that we're currently doing to make things more efficient.
I'm glad you guys brought it because I know when we approved having ClearGov, I think we're on a 3-year contract with them. It was for that purpose, to be transparent, because there were a lot of residents who were coming in and saying City Hall and City Council had not been transparent and for however many years, et cetera. And this was one, to me, this was easy. It was very low-hanging fruit to provide this, even though we were paying a contract for it. It's worth every penny. And the fact that we are now going to start utilizing it the way that it should be, which is reducing those redundancies, I think that this is great. So thank you.
And if I could just add one more
Sure.
comment to that. What I did not mention is that the budget document is on the same platform, and a lot of agencies have gone toward this online budget book instead of coming in, and it's always been like a giant ream of paper that's bound and people can thumb through it. But when it's online, it's searchable so that people can directly drill down to the specific information that most interests them. And I just love technology. So things like this, I feel are such great opportunities for us to be able to keep that dialogue going with the community.
Further questions from council? Public comment? If there's any public comment on this item, now is the time.
My name's Karen Amos, and I live at 364 Mount Washington Way. And when I saw the post from the city manager about ClearGov, I went online and started checking it out because I wanted to see what kind of tool it was. And it looks like ClearGov provides a great transparency and introduces efficiency much needed in city operations. And continuing to require manually derived reports would be like tying an anchor to a bird taking flight. I am really hopeful that the city staff continues to strive for efficiencies, regardless of the outcome of a city vote, because I think that's what we need right now. So thanks, well done.
Any other public comment? Janet?
Mayor Juan, I do not have any hands raised on this item.
We're I think this gentleman. Okay.
My name's Jeremy Amos, no relation, we just live together. I just wanted to piggyback on top of that, the thought of extending the manual recreation of something that council members can retrieve from the website online and tying up staff time is incredibly infuriating to somebody who just heard from his roofer that it took them over 2 months to get a permit processed so that we can get our roof replaced. Because dealing with the city and limited staff is incredibly difficult. So anything we can do to take effort off of staff time so that they can do the jobs that actually benefit us citizens, I'd appreciate. Thank you.
Janet, do we have anyone online?
Mayor Juan, I do not have any hands raised via Zoom.
Okay, then I will close public comment and bring it back for discussion. Any comment that you would like to discuss?
Jim, Councilmember Diaz, I too really enjoyed the ticking and tying and signing of checks when I was mayor, and going through each item and looking to see what was being paid, so I was aware of who we were paying and how much. That made me feel very much on top of how we were spending our funds. So I appreciate that process. That's been done away with. It's now been done by us as council members, unless we desired to do so, per the newest rules. But if you haven't already, I assume you're getting your agenda by email. Is that correct?
Yes, why?
Okay, wonderful. The fact that you have a computer and you know how to use it is awesome, because if you haven't checked out ClearGov, the simplicity of looking at all the bills that have been paid is so much easier online on your big screen than it is doing this on a piece of paper. And it's just a way of doing things. It's really simple, and I was impressed by it. And we've come 2 years since we started using ClearGov. Clearly, our staff knows how to block and tackle now. They know how to do it, and they're using it, and it's awesome, and it's a great tool. And quite frankly, anything that our staff wants to make them more efficient and make them happy, our job as electeds is to create policy, not to direct operations. And this is an operational thing, and I really appreciate the efficiency in operations, and I appreciate Councilmember Trupiano saying earlier she values staff time, because I do too. And this sounds like all of them want this. I'm all in. Thank you very much.
By the way, there's more than just checks that are processed that way, including credit card payments, which one of our staff members caught some fraud, in case you've forgotten about that. So it's an important tool. And by the way, I'm nearsighted, so I take my glasses off to read papers. I can read them in the dark.
For now.
For now.
I would just say, I appreciate staff bringing this forward. I do think that ClearGov, it's a great tool. It's how I'm more comfortable looking at data. And the more that we could utilize tools, the better. So I think that's great. I do have a concern about both the utilization of the tool and the awareness of the tool. I think there was a comment earlier by Ms. Amos about finding out about it recently. It's been in place for a couple years. And the fact that this has been what our community, by this I mean included in the agenda, this has been part of our community and what our community is familiar with since ever. And to move to something that without doing that outreach, without first ensuring that the community is aware, I think is premature. So I would say, I think having both in parallel is great. If we can do the outreach necessary to make sure that the folks in town are aware that this is a tool available to them, I think that would go a long way. But I think, the things that are included in the agenda and what we choose to share in the agenda, that is a matter of policy. And I would say I'm not really thrilled about changing that unilaterally without the council directing that to be done. So I would say we should do both in parallel, do the outreach necessary so that the community feels comfortable, and then when that happens, the council can direct that to be changed so that we can move forward. And that's probably not a long time, but it will be some time, I think, just given that the amount of folks that I've spoken with that aren't aware that it's there. But once you are aware that it's there, I think it becomes a very easy option. But until then, I would not be comfortable removing that from the packet to make sure that the folks who are familiar with getting information that way continue to do so, and then we do the outreach necessary to make sure that they're getting what they need. And it's not just, I understand it is additional work for staff, so granted, thank you for that. Removing this would be, it is a benefit to staff. You are taking some function away, so I recognize that. But there's also the benefit to the community. And I think that it does provide a benefit. And until the balance of benefit makes sense, I think we should keep it. And then we can revisit at a later time when we've done the outreach.
So if I could add a few things, I think it's important we talk about utilization rates on ClearGov. We have no way of knowing utilization rates in the agenda packet. And my experience of 15 years of doing this at an executive level, I will tell you, there are probably a very, 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 very few amount of people in this community that look at that in the agenda packet relative to what we can expose through ClearGov. I think the other piece is when we talk about the level of comfort in the community, I have no way to measure that. And so I struggle with coming back with direction to not do the agenda packet because there is no quantifiable way to know when the community, quote unquote, is ready for it, except that communities throughout the country and our world get pretty much everything on the internet in some form. Our agenda is primarily on the internet, so if you are a person accessing our agenda through the internet, it's probably less steps to actually access it through ClearGov. And so I pause because I don't know how to come back with a metric that says it's enough time, except that I started that outreach through my newsletter, through Facebook, through Nextdoor. I will continue to do that outreach. And again, as I said earlier, the cultural significance to the internal staff of the 27 people, but parsing out those that maybe work in the field, the 8 to 9 that do the majority of the administrative work. This is a big cultural thing for them, and it's the beginning of many changes that we need to make to be efficient, as I talked about, especially when we talk about budget deficits that require potentially a conversation between service delivery and revenue. Moving to an efficiency is a key portion, and it's going to take years. I want to repeat that. It's going to take years for me to get from where we are to where we need to be with efficiency, not because of the staff that's here, but because of the amount that has not happened in the last decade. And so to pause on something as subtle as this, but can have as much benefit to the staff, is concerning to me as the city manager.
Sure, and I think as a matter of policy, it is difficult to get a metric on that, and that's why we as electeds, we answer to the people, and we will give direction on through that representation. So that's what I would wait for as we set that policy.
So I kind of disagree.
I wholeheartedly do.
We hire a city manager to run operations, and he's totally told us that our staff wants this efficiency. And the concern is, as I've heard you, is that there are some residents who are used to getting it a certain way, and they want it that way until they know how to do it differently. Isn't the solution pretty simple? By putting a link to ClearGov in our agenda instead of having the spreadsheet? If you want the information, go here. So they're going to go, and if you have any questions, call. So we don't have to, I mean, it's a simple metric to put in the link, and if you have any questions, call. That's how you get this information now. I mean, isn't that a solution that gives everybody information who would normally get it from that source?
Yeah, and you know what? I agree with you 100%, absolutely. But when I click on that link, I'm going to a website, right? And then I have to dig a little bit deeper, right? And then I've got to go to the checkbook, and I've got to find the dates from this date to that date, or vendor by vendor. And so I guess my only concern, and I love ClearGov, I have nothing against it if it's an efficiency for our team, is that transition period, right? Where people are used to seeing it like a snapshot and they understand it. And I mean, I don't know how you're going to measure that metric, but now we're asking people to click on a link and go to a website they've never been to and make, so.
Yeah, so I would say.
But I am about efficiency, and so I'm inclined, she left already, I'm inclined to give it a try.
May I just add one more comment that
Please.
would address what you're saying? Actually, a hybrid of both of your suggestions. We can still create a link that goes directly to the checkbook. Yeah. And so all they have to do is scroll down the page to continue looking at transactions.
Is it also possible then, in addition to that, and as we're trying to help transition this, because I do feel that, I don't even think there should be a transition period, I think we just do it. Because I think that we've heard all year long in recaps and blog posts, et cetera, looking people in the eye sitting up here that they want efficiencies and to reduce redundancies, and then in the next breath to say, but don't, and let's hold off on doing that, I think is a slap in the face to our staff. So I don't like slapping people in the face. I'm more direct with my words, and I think that you guys deserve to be efficient and to reduce redundancies. Can you put instructions on if somebody were to actually go to the checkbook, what they're clicking on, what they're looking for, so that they know, I know we can do this.
Yes.
Yes, so that can be the transition for them. Because yes, it is a change. It is very different from what they're used to seeing, but very few people are using it, and I think the ones who are sitting in the audience because they've actually sent me messages saying, hey, look at this, I don't understand what this thing is, and they're in the room. And everybody uses technology, and we can all do this. So, thank you.
Yeah, so what we have, I mean, if we look at our current agenda, there's no link or description, it's just missing. And so I'd say that that's not the direction that I would want to go. So I think we can set a timetable on it so that people can properly transition. They'll be more familiar with what they're seeing if they are able to see what they're used to in the register with a link and instructions in addition and a note. I don't know if that's allowed to put in the agenda. Can we put a note saying that this will transition to ClearGov solely at a certain date? Give it
30 days.
like, well, that's only one meeting. I'm thinking like 3 meetings. You give it 3 meetings and you'd be done.
Why can't it just be one? One meeting?
Change management is, I think we're skipping the change management, and it's important.
For whom? You're telling staff that you want them to continue to be redundant while we're asking them to continue to do more work, et cetera. I don't understand why we are prolonging this when we have a solution on how to help them navigate where they need to go. So I can see adding it back in the next agenda for September and saying the financial obligations that used to be here can now be found here, and here are the instructions. And I don't think one resident will squawk unless they're not familiar with how to use a computer. If you were to explain, and they explain, because I know that you're going to do a recap of this, if you were to explain to everybody why this is good for the city and that you support it, I bet you they'd be all on board. Here's how we're going to help staff, and here are the instructions you're going to get. I guarantee you they would all be on board with that.
And that instruction could be in the agenda? Okay.
Yeah, we would just make the September 9th, under that auspices as example, we would make the
19th.
September 19th the typical process with an additional page with the link, and then maybe similar to what you saw Amy do today, screenshots walking people through the boxes that they click to do certain things. And then on the website, we would have that forever sitting there then.
So then would the instructions be included in the packet on a go-forward basis in perpetuity?
Well, I would just do it in the first meeting, and then we'd have them on the website for people in future.
What would be included in the packet?
After the first meeting? Well, I've heard a variety of things. We either can do the packet as we talked about and say, here's the link, here are the instructions, and then in the future it's not there. That's one option. If for some reason that's not desirable, that would be my desire as a city manager to do it that way. Other than that, we can, as a standard course of somewhere on the agenda, put the link to that. But I think once people get comfortable, I mean, it's literally the button on the homepage. Like it's not like you got to search for it. You click the button on the homepage, literally in the middle of the page. I think one meeting with the instructions and then those same instructions on the website to access are pretty sufficient for people who want to look at this information to then be able to do it.
And the only thing I would say, and I know that I had trouble finding ClearGov because I searched in ClearGov and nothing came up, is that we call it the budget and financial transparency. That's the button. So that
okay
can
with-
be a little bit confusing on the website because I'm like, where is this ClearGov? Where is it?
Yeah, we can add language to make all of that much easier. Yeah, the website.
Here,
The website
maybe.
is
Yeah.
a whole nother diatribe.
That's another
but
topic.
yeah, but
for
yes,
another
to that we can make adjustments on the ad
Yes.
fly there to help.
Because
Yeah.
it doesn't say ClearGov, and it is a little bit confusing.
I do think that we should include a link in the packet. Because a lot of people I think what's being suggested is no link at all, no mention in the packet. And I think that we should have at a minimum a link so that it's easily accessible for people who receive the packet and don't go to the website.
Then I can put it under city manager reports. I can just put the link there.
That's fine. I think as if we clearly indicate what it is
Yeah.
and have the link, it's a copy and paste on a go-forward basis, then I think that would satisfy the easier access to it.
So then it's not going to be in the consent calendar anymore where most people
Yeah.
are used to looking for it? And it's
Yeah,
gonna
I mean,
be-
I think we have to give instruction on that,
Okay.
and then as long as the description is sufficient to convey what it is.
Yeah, I can do that in that city manager section as a item, whatever the number is, on a go forward. So what I'm hearing, I want to make sure I'm clear. September 19th, same process, instructions, direction, clarity on, it will be here on the website, and you will have it in this part of the agenda moving forward as a link, yada, 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 yada. Okay. Well, I need head nods or something, but I'm assuming that's
Yes.
good. Okay.
Yeah, I think that works.
Okay, great, thank you.
Thank you, guys.
All right.
Godspeed.
Motion or anything?
No, just we
Do
gave
we
direction.
I just needed direction,
I
yeah.
think that's sufficient direction.
Direction clear.
The direction is clear as ClearGov is, as crystal clear as ClearGov, yes.
Thank you.
Perfect. Okay, so that concludes item 7C. No, sorry, 7B. Next is 7C, designation of a voting delegate and alternate delegate for the League of California Cities. I believe you're kicking us off.
I am. Thank you so much, Mayor Juan and City Council members. Before you this evening is the opportunity to designate a voting delegate and/or alternate voting delegate for the Cal Cities Annual Conference. The conference is being held at the Safe Credit Union Convention Center in Sacramento, September 20th through 22nd. On September 22nd, the voting delegate will have the opportunity to vote on resolutions. However, as of 5 p.m. today, there have been no resolutions published for consideration. However, a petition resolution can still be submitted during the annual conference and would need to be considered and voted on during the business meeting. Cal City's bylaws provide each city entitlement to one vote in matters affecting municipal or league policy. Conference registration is required for the voting delegate and/or alternative. During the last several fiscal years, a vast majority of conference and training budget for city staff and city council were eliminated or significantly reduced, except for Cal City's East Bay Division and Contra Costa County Mayor's Conference attendance. If it is needed to send a voting delegate, funds will need to be expended. The conference registration is $700 per person plus lodging and transportation expenses. The fiscal year 2023-24 budget adopted June 20th, 2023, approved a budget of $2,000. Per the last city council assignments adopted December 20th, 2022, and this designated Councilmember Trupiano as the primary representative and Vice Mayor Diaz as alternate on the Cal Cities East Bay Division. And just the voting delegate registration is due to Cal Cities by September 5th, 2023, and that concludes my report.
Thank you.
One thing to add, Mayor, just for your consideration, in the report, I requested that both the voting member and the alternate be paid for, which is atypical than I think what has happened in the past. I would move money from my own city manager stuff to address that. I just think it's important that council members don't, as much as possible, out of pocket for these city represented processes. That's a change, and I just want to highlight that for your consideration as you make this determination tonight.
Thank you. Questions from council? Your mic is on.
Wait to after public comment.
Okay. Public comment. Janet?
Mayor Juan, I did not receive any speaker cards, and I have one hand that just was raised on Zoom. Roy, as I promote you to panelist, if you can please unmute your microphone, you'll have 3 minutes to speak.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay, great. I joined the meeting here late, and I just got a couple of things here. Some quick hits. A lot of discussion on this software on the what is it, claytonca.gov. Yeah, I don't know who's the project manager for that. I mean, it's like a lot of stuff going back and forth, and a lot of the things that are being said are really not coming from people, in my mind anyway, who really know the product. I know some of you have been working with it, which is good, but you know, who's the project manager who's kind of oversees it and is collecting this data and then going to use this data so that to make these adjustments, blah blah blah. That's as I was listening, I was thinking about that. The other thing, quick hit, is that I joined late, and I got I joined post the I guess the vote on going forward on what is it, on the budget, or not the budget, but rather the recovery, the cost recovery for all suppliers, vendors that the city works with. And to back up, a lot of, okay, I'm just going to be blunt, a lot of noise is coming from one in particular, CBCA. I just look at it really simply. I mean, I'm a consultant, and if I had a 15-year contract and I didn't have any adjustments, if I didn't, stay with the market, forget it. I'm out of business. All right. So CBCA, with all the noise that's being made, own up. Okay, own up, pay up. And to the city, okay? If you're going to use this street, whatever, close down the city, then pay up, own up. This downtown area needs money. It needs to be refreshed so badly, okay? And it's not going to be done on its own. So use some of those resources to go in that direction, all right? And also, the last thing I'll say is that I did join late, and I did join when there was discussion going on among the staff or the council members. Oh my gosh! I suggest that all of you view this meeting, see the replay of it, and really, look at the behavior that was displayed. Amazing, such vitriol, pontification, brazen allegations were being made by certain members, incivility, posturing. Stop it. Okay, work as a team, work as a unit. That's why you were voted in, and maybe you need to be voted out, straight out. Okay, because it's just something to observe. And I encourage all of you to watch what took place and the incivility that needs to change. All right, and the audience. And I think somebody said.
Thank you, Roy.
Okay, you're welcome.
Mayor Juan, I do not have any other hands raised on this item.
Thank you. All right, I will close public comment and bring us back for discussion. Councilmember Cloven, you had a comment?
And just hearkening back to last year's conference in Long Beach, I was fortunate enough to have the fees for the conference paid for by the city. Really, it was phenomenal. So, Kim, if you get to go, you're going to learn a lot. It's a great conference, good to be with your peers, and the workshops are phenomenal. Just a reminder, I am going this year. I've already paid my own fee. I don't expect to be reimbursed for that, but I'm going because I found so much value in it last year, being in that group of outstanding individuals and learning what other cities are doing. It's important because we are part of a larger system. We're not on an island. But as a quick reminder, I also paid my own flight. I also paid my own rental car, and I also paid for my own hotel for that. So it's just as a reminder, we're to be fiscal responsible. The only thing I accepted in reimbursement was the actual cost for the conference.
I concur. I also am already registered and will be a panelist. Last year and this year, I also covered my own everything. And the good thing is that it's in Sacramento, so there are no flights that anyone needs to worry about this year. It's unfortunate that we don't do this earlier in the season because although we don't know what the delegates will have to vote on, it is cheaper the earlier that you register. So I think my registration might have been $600 when it opened up on May 31st. So that's just something that we should keep in mind and be mindful. We can save, looks like $100 by doing that. So I have no issue with the delegates. And to Janet's point, there is nothing that is up right now. It could happen the day of, and that's when you would find out. But I will also be there with bells on.
You are our delegate, and you are our alternate.
I am?
You are.
I didn't realize that.
You are.
So
I better check my calendar.
So I
wasn't planning on going.
So I leave it to you if you would like to attend.
I will advise.
I will first ask.
I would like to attend.
Okay, perfect.
Yes, absolutely.
And you will let us know.
Exactly tomorrow before close of business.
Sure. And so to the extent.
That's 5 o'clock. You don't realize that.
Banking hours. So to the.
I just want to be clear.
All right, I got you. So.
Crystal clear.
To the extent that you are able to go, then I
Yeah.
think it's the council's prerogative that we designate the representative and the alternate to attend the conference. I think that's the direction that you're seeking.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Do we need a vote?
Do we need to have another alternate just in case we find out after today that the alternate can't go? Is that proper to do? Or does it matter?
Well, it would be helpful in case Councilmember Trupiano, like I don't want this to happen, gets the flu or something and can't go, that we would have someone there that's there to do it. So, but, so I think if for sake of ease, if we want to say it's Councilmember Trupiano and Vice Mayor Diaz, and if you want to make if Vice Mayor Diaz lets us know he can't go, then it will be X, that would be helpful for staff.
Sure. Then I think because you're already going, would one of you desire to be the alternate in the case of Vice Mayor Diaz unable to attend?
I would prefer
You're
that.
on a panel, so I think
That's
that
what I
may
was
be
just going
more
to say. I think
difficult for
that
you.
even though my panel is on the 21st, I'm also on the executive board and I can be called into other things. We should all be in the same room at the same time, I believe, that day. But I'm not going to, it doesn't matter to me.
You can be an alternate.
I'll be the alternate for Vice Mayor Diaz's alternate position. Yeah.
The alternate to the alternate.
Yeah, and that's fine. So you will, so I guess then,
Mine looks clear. I will so confirm tomorrow.
okay, perfect. So let's do
It looks
that.
clear.
Okay, you still need a motion? Okay, so what we just said, I would move that.
And I'll second it.
Would you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Trupiano?
Yes.
Councilmember Tillman?
Aye.
Councilmember Cloven?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Diaz?
Yes.
Mayor Juan.
Aye. That concludes item second 7C. That's the second 7. Oh, no, that's 7C. Oh, 7.
You've already handled it.
7C, I see. Okay, got it. All right, item 9, council items. Is there any items that council would like to request for future meetings?
I have several. One is that it occurred to me that Clayton is going to be, this is for future agenda items, right? Going to be 60 years old next year in 2024, and I didn't know, I know we're going to be talking about city-sponsored special events next month, but I think it would be great for us to celebrate as a city for 60 years. The other thing that we only have 3 concerts in the Grove left this Saturday and then 2 in September. At some point, Vice Mayor Diaz and I will have, we'll give you a date for a future concert in the Grove meeting, sort of a wrap-up meeting after the last concert, and we'll get back to you on a date on that. 2 other things is the parking permit process. I think, Vice Mayor Diaz, you asked about that being a future agenda item. Is that going to be a future agenda item?
Yes, I have been sitting down and need to sit down again with internal staff, mostly the police chief, the community development director, and understand what we need to do and the work that we need to do as staff to be able to come back with council to have that discussion. With everything going on right now, I don't foresee it happening in 2023, probably more likely January of 24 is probably a realistic time frame, because I don't know what additional work might need to be done and or consultants or legal analysis has to happen on the what that all entails as far as what it looks like. I did talk to Mr. Hood, and he was generally, and Mr. Wilcock, and they were generally okay with that timing if it were to turn out to be January 24.
And we have precedents for residential parking permit, right, already, so.
Yeah, it's the how we do it in kind of that downtown area and the residents of the potentially built Olivia project and who gets it, who doesn't, and the legality of that. The city attorney and I have already had a little bit of a discussion on it, but we need to be able, when we come back to you, that we've done enough I's and T's, not to fully do it, but that we can have a fruitful discussion to get further direction to then
Parameters.
enact it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the very last thing I had on my future agenda item, I had a great, really wonderful ride-along with Brett, our city manager, and Jim Warburton, our maintenance supervisor. And one of the things that has come up repeatedly, and then Jim Killeran was here tonight, and he mentioned it before I got a chance to make it a future agenda item, is a discussion about those bump outs, or whatever they're called in the Keller Ridge neighborhood. I've had several residents talk about what would it cost to remove them.
Do we not like the bump outs?
They're dangerous. And
Okay.
they have like plantings in them that nobody can maintain, and then you have to paint them. There's a lot of maintenance
Yeah.
around them. So that's it for me.
Okay. I'm writing things down.
The other item that Mr. Killeran mentioned was a vegetation management plan relative to fire safety. I think that that's of extreme value as we are seeing such incredible cycles of wet and heat. Something that I'm not sure how it needs to be put in agenda, but it needs to be put on the radar.
Yeah, we are tentatively scheduled with our consultant, your former interim city manager, to come back. I want to say October 3rd, but don't quote me on that. To talk about the maintenance, organizational analysis, the work, a monthly schedule of the work that gets done throughout the city of Clayton, separate from the tree schedule that we put online and talked about. We can add what vegetation management increases look like to something like that discussion, if that suffices, Councilmember Clover.
That'll work at that time, but we need to have the conversation.
Okay.
The other thing is, as I mentioned earlier, we need to have the conversation about dealing with our structural deficit sooner than later. This is something that we've been noodling around but not actually doing anything about. So let's have a conversation about solving this sooner than later. I don't want to wait until the end of the year or to the beginning of next year. We need to get into it sooner. So as quick as that could be agendized, I'd appreciate it.
Sounds good. Let's also include the 60 year in our special events policy discussion and just have that as a additional item. I don't know what to call it, something.
Yeah,
okay.
no problem.
Okay, that is item 9. So item 10, council reports. Did you want to kick us off with reports?
I could kick us off. I've got a list because it's been a month, right? July 25th, Brett and Amy and I had a wonderful meeting with the Clayton Valley Village folks. I call the village people. And it was very, I know for years they've come before this council with kind of the same wish list over and over again. And I have vowed to founder Sonia Wilka that we're going to try to make some things happen, and we are already. It was a fruitful meeting, and they were very grateful. August 1st, we had a wonderful national night out. Thank you, Chief. You did a great job. It was wonderful to see everybody out in the community and chatting, and it was a beautiful weather. Mayor's Conference, August 3rd in the city of Lafayette, and I know the next one we're hosting, which is September 7th at Oakhurst Country Club, so looking forward to that. August 8th, then, I had a wonderful meeting with the Clayton Community Library Foundation. It was our August board meeting, and they have a lot cooking. There's a lot going on. We're going to talk a little bit more about it in the September meeting. Their book sale was a huge success. Next one is at the end of October, and I'll get you those dates next time. But also, the library will be a day of service project site. And they're very, very excited about that, as are we as a city, to really beautify that, that jewel in our city. August 10th, I did a great ride-along, again, with the city manager and Jim Warburton, very eye-opening, very informative. I appreciated everybody's honesty, and we had some further discussion about that this morning. And then we had a budget and audit meeting yesterday, Mayor Juan and I, to talk about the investment policy. That's it.
Vice Mayor Diaz.
Thank you. Very quickly, the 20th of July, a County Connection Board meeting where we are continuing to monitor state and federal funds to the entity. On the 22nd, a concert with the Chicago Tribute Band. And the last car show was held on Wednesday, the 26th of July. The 30th, on a Sunday, attended the Sheriff's Posse 42nd Annual Barbecue. Got to spend some good quality time with both Supervisor Ken Carlson and State Assembly Member Tim Grayson. They were both there. We got some good time together. National Night Out, excellent response. Want to thank the chief and the department for leading the effort, and also want to make mention of the CERT team members that were there in spades. It was incredible to see all of the CERT members from out on Morgan Territory Road. Finally, on the August was the Mayor's Conference in Moraga, very interesting. On the 5th, another concert, House Rockers. Then on the 14th, had a lengthy discussion with one of our citizens relative to the fees and all of that thing that goes with them. The next item I'm going to relate to was something we did not receive full information on, but on the night of Monday, the 17th of July, I happened to be at City Hall picking up some of my paperwork and gear there, and at about 8:54 p.m., I was chatting with Sergeant Ania, and he had to take off Code 3 on a toddler reported falling into the backyard swimming pool. Upon arrival, the officers, including Officer Matt, and I can't pronounce his last name, but it's Paula Waxneck. You got that. But Officer Matt, on the arrival, officers and members of the Fire District Station 11 provided life-saving measures to the 2-year-old little girl. Several more firemen and paramedics arrived on the scene as well. Sergeant Anita then, totally on his own, escorted the ambulance to the John Muir Hospital in Walnut Creek. Excellent community humanity and compassion. I want to emphasize that. And unfortunately, the child was taken off of support on the 21st. Sergeant Ania was invited by the parents to attend the toddler's funeral on the 2nd. I bring this up because I personally experienced the same kind of treatment back almost a year ago in September. We had an event at my house, which is still ringing true. But fortunately for me and for the community, Officer Nia was there and in charge, and he led the efforts of the first responders. It was incredible to watch them in action and to see the activities. I want to commend Sergeant Ania for that. As I reflect back to September of 2022. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Tillman.
Thank you, Mayor. On the 27th of July, I attended the East Bay Division of the League of California Cities meeting. There were re-elections there, and I was re-elected to the executive board. I attended on the 31st. I met the new principal of Diablo. Oh my, what is the name of that school? Diablo View Middle School. I had DTRT, about the Do the Right Thing initiative that we have in town. That was her first day, and she was doing a meet and greet. Her name is Principal Wilson. And I shared with her the desire for us to have the students come back into chambers to actually receive their awards. She also shared with me that as she was beginning her first days before school started, that she was learning from the teachers that the students are not really embracing it. It's not really being, embraced around campus. She wants to try to revamp it, not necessarily change the words. She just wants to make sure that she instills it a different way. And she shared that a lot of the teachers were not being asked to submit students for it, so they weren't being included in what we were seeing here in chambers. On the 1st, I attended National Night Out. Thank you, Chief. I had a great time. Thanks for the barbecue. I think it was Daddy's Barbecue that catered, and the girls and I had a great time. Thank you to the staff as well who attended. And on the 2nd, I had a Clayton Pride Community Alliance Award dinner at Groveside Bistro. I think I shared with all of you that I won that, and there was a dinner for me for that presentation. And I have to say that not only was it just for me as an ally, but I shared it with everybody else who are allies in the community, and Pride is alive and well, and we have secured June 2nd next year for our Pride parade here in town. On the 3rd, I had a Clayton Pride call, and on that evening, I was also in Lafayette for the mayor's conference with my colleagues. On the 9th, I attended the Zoom board meeting for CEC, where our city managers already shared that we were awarded that 1% loan. I also attended the East Bay Leadership Council Installation Awards with Councilmember Trupiano, and on the 13th, I attended the Groveside Bistro's Drag Queen Brunch. It was called Dragalicious. Unfortunately, we all learned today that Judy will be closing her doors. She opened up during the pandemic. She actually opened up 4th of July weekend in 2020. So right in the heart of the pandemic, it will be a loss to our community. And I'm saddened that this is now the 3rd female-owned business that is now closed this summer. Something that we should consider as we're trying to do outreach and having people come in to the downtown area. I think we need to do a little bit of research on what exactly is happening with that. Not necessarily because they're female, but what is happening with our downtown, that they're not getting the support that they need. I had a ride along as well with our maintenance manager, Jim Warburton, as well as our city manager. I think I was the first one, and it was very enlightening as well. I live on Keller Ridge, so I know the speed trap that is, and I know that that's why those bump outs are there, is because everyone goes flying up that street, and it actually makes people slow down because the 2 speed bumps there do not. And I also had several meetings with the city manager and appreciate the time that you give to answer my questions. And I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, Councilmember. I was able to go to the CBCA meeting in Endeavor Hall on July 27th. It was always great to get together and hear what their plans are and address some of the concerns that some of the members had. It's amazing to hear that their membership continues to grow. Their next meeting is on the 31st of this month and will be held at the Clayton Valley Presbyterian Church. It's going to be an ice cream social and hot dog booth, and so it'll be fun. I really enjoyed the National Night Out. It was a great start, and I'm looking forward to seeing the momentum it'll get next year. And you're right, the Dad's Barbecue rocked. It was really good. I really enjoyed also watching Holly get honored for the work that she's done with Clayton Pride at the dinner at the Growside Bistro. She's done amazing things with the community, and again, it just shows who we are and how much we value inclusion as one of our character traits. Had a brief Transpac meeting on August 3rd. It was really awesome to tune into the CEC meeting, California Energy Commission meeting on August 9th, and watch Clayton get our award for our contract. I was wishing they would do a little bit more of ceremony around it besides putting it on the consent calendar, but it was a minor item in their eyes. But it was nice to hear our city manager's voice showing appreciation, and I'm looking forward to see what that does for our city. The concert in the park that Saturday was awesome. A bit hot out there, but the music was rocking and people were in a good mood. One of the things that's been taking more of my time, and I'm good at this, is trying to create community events. And one of the things I did earlier in the year was Clayton Cleans Up, and now we're dovetailing on that. We're doing on 9/11 a Clayton Remembrance Day. And it started out just a couple people and the chief of the fire station on 9/11. And I reached out and got a hold of the communications director for the whole Contra Costa County Fire Prevention District. And it's now their event. It's not our event. They are going to have, they put up an invitation today. There's going to be, they're setting up 100 chairs, and dignitaries will be coming from all over to celebrate and honor the fallen firefighters of that day that we so aptly do with all the flags and names on the fire station. So we are the venue for the whole county celebration of that event, and it'll happen on 9/11, which is a Monday, at 11 o'clock in the morning, and there'll be a small street closure to allow that for safety purposes with that many people and that small of a driveway. But even better is what's coming together is the following Saturday is 9/16, but it's the Clayton Service Day in honor of 9/11. We have 3 projects for sure. There's both schools have got projects, and the library has got a project. We're looking at right now. I've come talking to the post office because, quite frankly, they need that to be a project. But I'm trying to get permission to actually do work on private land because it's not our property, and we might have another project with some of the planter boxes in the city. So we're looking at that. Everybody's going to show up at 8 o'clock in the morning for coffee and donuts. There'll be 4 or 5 easels which they can choose from projects, so they can do their own. And then we go out and we go out in service of our community, do a cleanup prior to Oktoberfest, which is coming on later in the 1st of October. It's exciting. Councilmember Tillman and I have been working on this thing, and we're loving to see that we have not 1, but 2 cleanup service projects in our city annually, and it's awesome. So that's the end of my report.
Thank you. I too want to thank the chief and city staff for National Night Out. It was great. I did not enjoy the barbecue, but I did have the shaved ice because I love shaved ice. So it was great. It was fun to see everyone. It was a warm night, but it cooled down very quickly, so that was fortunate. I did attend an event with Rotary. We did a photo of the park, the new Clayton Community Park, and so it was great. I got to talk with the folks of the Clayton Valley Concord Sunrise Rotary chapter, and so that was fun. We did have the budget and audit committee meeting yesterday. And in lieu, I was not able to attend the last mayor's conference. In lieu of that, I was at an awards dinner. This is not related to the city, but one of my children was a 5-star swimmer this year and achieved county time for all strokes for swimming. So we had a celebration dinner with the team on that, so I was not able to attend. But yes, I did go to concerts. I'm not as good with the bucket as everyone else. So.
By the way, you won the second place award for the most money collected.
Okay. Excellent. And that is the end of my report. So that means that next is adjournment. The next regular council meeting will be September 19th, and it is 10:25. Thank you.